Hey, we are back. I'm back in England now from my visiting series. Anyway, today is 6th of September, and so far there's me in series, and we have Robert Foertsch. Robert Foertsch from America. Hello, Robert.
Greetings. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's quite a pleasure to be here.
Oh, Robert, you've got a few things to talk about today, but you were going to start talking about moment, aren't you? Because
part of what we've got obviously Hurricane Harvey has wreaked quite a bit of havoc already and continues to. And then the waves already are bigger here. I saw some reports of Irma having 40-foot waves in some areas, close to the eye wall. And the way that water works, it would seem that some of that activity is having its effect already here. We've got bigger than normal waves, so we know a storm is brewing. Even if we didn't have the Weather Channel and all of that, the surfers know something's up. Surf's up is what it is, and that's it goes along with the time of the year. This is to be expected for this time of the year. But what's interesting about Irma, and I typically would just kind of slough it off because quite often hurricanes avoid us here, and it may avoid us this time around. But the idea of looking into it made sense to me, and when I did, what I found out is it was one of the fastest forming hurricanes that they've ever seen, and so that's kind of interesting. Now, what we're looking at here is the calm before the storm. It was a few days ago at the Nature Preserve, and this is the Nikon P900 zoomed in. I don't see any large solar flares shooting off of that sun. I suspect that all of that type of activity that we've seen growing up and even in our adult ages is simply a fabrication of computer generated imagery. When I zoom in on the sun 83 times, like I did in that earlier shot, I'm close to it right there. There's no massive flares shooting off of that. And
as usual.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a real joy to be able to do this, to be able to show people a world that is different than a lot of them understand. Since I can't get in a spaceship and go up and take pictures of the Earth from a long distance away, we can actually just get out and about and go in by the beach or the coastal or the nature preserves. And so part of what I do is an advertisement for that. It's like, go ahead, and if you're able to, some people have mobility issues or where they live, it's actually quite expensive to live near the coast, but where we are, it's actually pretty reasonable, about 5 miles away. That's not a problem. But the idea is to, I believe, unplug from all the digital input. And although this is digital input right here, this is a more natural, and it's I believe healthier to see because it's pretty true to form. When I was out there recording this the other day, that's what I saw. It's not a bunch of trickery. And you know what? One of the things that I'd like to I've got other illustrations of it that are a bit better. But when we look at the sun and the placement of the clouds, I don't really know how the sun actually works. I certainly don't trust NASA. I don't trust the modern scientific theoretical physicists that meander off into explanations and formulas that don't reflect what we actually see or experience. So, like for example, the natural physics and property of the water that we're looking at, right up in the middle of the shot here, where the cursor is, it's a bit more still, and I can tell the direction of the wind movement based on the way that the ripples look and all of that. So, like if you drop a rock in the pond, it's going to send ripples out a long way, and then they'll bounce back.
Wow,
possibly.
look at that.
Yeah, isn't that something? What I did with my YouTube channel is I have my Sun in the Clouds video as my channel explanation. It got over 2,000 views now. When it went to Flat Earth Research Group, when they shared it, it got about 40,000 1,000 views and 1,000 shares through that venue. And in that, I'm showing the sun and the moon, and I'm mentioning that they're where they appear and vanish, and their duration of visibility is not even close to being adequately explained by the heliocentric model. So people can go out and with their own eyes see where the sun and the moon appear and vanish, and how long they're visible, especially in relationship to one another. Because what I've noticed is the duration of visibility changes quite a bit. For example, I've seen the sun and the moon in the same 24-hour period for about 12 hours each, and then that'll vary up to 3 or 4 hours, depending on the season that it is. And so that wouldn't be at all explained by the globe model. They should stay in a relatively uniform manner.
It shocks me a little bit. Like, I've made a little video about my trip to Holland, and yet again, when I was filming out the window, and we weren't as high either in that plane because it was a propeller plane, but clouds are so low, whatever they're doing, whatever they're creating is just above your head.
Right,
just above your head. It's not like a 2 or 3 miles up in the sky, all these tornadoes and all that. They're just above your head.
Right, and now some of the clouds that we see are not actually fabricated, although there is what I believe to be weather modification. There isn't always the fabricated type, So it is interesting when we look at the evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. That would be impossible in a vacuum of space without a barrier. We've got I've heard Rob Skiba say we're in a snow globe. I like to, if I'm going to use an analogy, I want it to be a little bit more accurate. That's almost the opposite of what it is. In a snow globe, you've got the liquid around all the people in that. Now, a terrarium, that's a little bit more true to form. I think Rob would probably agree with me on that. I don't know, but what I would simply say is that the clues are all around us. I've talked about the shadows and the reflections, and that's actually a big deal. They show us wind direction. They show us the position of the light source, the sun and the moon. When the sun shoots down across the tops of the waves when it's low in the sky, you can see how it just hits the tops of the waves, and then the shadows in front of it. And then it's like a laser beam shooting down the beach and will show us the slightest variation in elevation. And I understand that I will go on about things like that and explain what people are seeing when the tide is coming in and the sun is coming up. Now, like, for example, let's look at this right here. I'm going to back that up just a moment. That's a sailboat that got washed up, and now the mast is broken off. But the thing that I want to illustrate right there is where the cursor is. It's easy to see how calm it is. The moisture just evaporating off of that water in that little marine layer, and then just to the left of that, it's not there. It was a very calm day. Now, on my photo or I should say my cover photo on Facebook, I've got the perfect mirrored. It's the Thanksgiving Day that I did the photo shoot there. And what was so interesting about that is there's not only waves that come and go and the tide that rises and falls, there's the wind direction and all of that affects the way that the ripples are either there or not. There are some days that are so calm, they're absolutely spectacular in relationship to the how the sun appears. Now, what I'm going to do here is what I've done before. The sun comes up from here sometimes of the year, and then way, way over here on the whole other side of the screen. And that was one of the observations that I had been noticing for a while before I was even aware we weren't on a globe. I just thought it interesting. I thought, what's going on with that? Why is it doing that? And then from what I understand,
Robert,
thank you.
Robert, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and one of the challenges that I have have is actually posting some of that. We get so much traffic here with our guests that sometimes it'll take a long time for me to get a post to go up. But this has never been seen by anybody but me. And this is kind of like brand new in that I haven't posted it yet. So I saw it from this perspective, and then I don't see anybody else out on the beach right there right now. I had one the other day, Saturday morning, where there was a lightning storm. I started out when it was not raining, about 5 miles. It's closer to 7 miles away from the beach where we live, the little house that we live in, and it was just a beautiful light show that was going on. And I started out there and then drove on to the beach. Mm-hmm.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that now this is without any filter. It's a little bit too much light. It's overwhelming the optics, so I'll back out a little bit. Although I have a polarized lens filter, I typically don't use it. What I like to use are the clouds. So when I can capture something that illustrates what I want to show, that's what I'll do. Now, what I'm gonna pause it here for a moment, and what I want to show is where my cursor is moving right now is a little bit of a higher spot, and I'm going to try and get this out of the way. And that's why if I move it, then it'll change. But right over here, where my finger is a bigger spot of the sun. It's shooting over the top of that little hump that's in the middle of the picture there. Now I've got other ones where we'll see the laser beam of the sun just shooting down the beach relatively unobstructed because it's a thin layer of water. And then when it comes in and out and there's a slight change in elevation, I'm talking like a half an inch or so or less, quarter of an inch, sometimes more. Yeah, we'll see the break in the beam of light. So those are some of the things, laws of perspective based on the light source that help us see differences in elevation, and what you're looking at will actually change. Boy, that's not so pretty right there. Something's going on with my my focus at the moment on there, so I'll zoom ahead a little bit. And
hey, while you're doing that, hello Patricia. Patricia's joined the hangout while you were talking. Hello Patricia.
Hello.
Hello, my darling. We've got Robert Foertsch. I called him Foertsch.
Greetings, Patricia. Good to see you here.
I've only known Robert for a year. Foertsch.
We'll let
That's
you
quite all right.
Hi, everyone.
Amazing videos, Robert.
Now, one of the things that I find so interesting about that is look at the hot spot, apparently not just where the sun is, but above it, and then the some of the jet trails that are there too. The way that the light is blasting through and lighting that up. It's actually quite a light show that goes on out there. There's a surf fisherman out there right now. He's close to where we were all struck by lightning about a year ago. On my YouTube channel, I've got that video called Struck by Lightning.
What's going on there then? That's amazing, that one.
Well, what's happening there is it's extremely calm, and we've got the marine layer in the middle of the shot going horizontal. It's ever so it's so calm that the moisture that's evaporating from the ocean is condensing right above the water, and that's what we're looking at. A gentle breeze would either blow it away or
these colours, Robert, in the right hand side at the top with the sky and the clouds there. There's some amazing colours there.
Oh, it is. Now this particular monitor was the one that my dad had in his room at the assisted living place, and it's actually kind of special. I love my dad. He passed on. His body died about coming up on 2 weeks this upcoming Saturday, and one of the things that he shared with me. What's that?
Is that all? It feels like he died a long time ago. Sorry.
Oh no, it was
a week ago now. It's only 2 weeks. Robert, we love you and send you much love.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was interesting. My dad told me I went there about 3 months ago and spent a month and a half with him and capturing some beautiful images of the Midwest, and we had some great time time together, and he told me that he and my mother were in a dream. My mother passed away coming up on 24 years. It will be on the 28th of this month. And, he said he wanted to get back into the dream. He didn't want to go to breakfast. And,
what was he saying? He wants to be with your mom.
Yeah. And what ended up happening is he passed on in his sleep, and he transitioned possibly into the dream world that he wanted to stay in. I'd have no way of knowing for sure.
Robert, at least he went peacefully.
Oh yeah. Now, as we're looking at the beach here, what we get to, just like I was mentioning about my father passing, I'll see people out there that used to walk hand in hand, and now one of the partners is gone because of a death in the family, cancer. I've known that to happen with some of the people I've known out there over the years. So there's different stages of life. We've got the locals that love to come out here on the beach and walk their dogs and meet their friends and all of that. So there's a lot of stages of life, and then we've got the 16 million guests that visit the Grand Strand area of Myrtle Beach every year. So like when we have a hurricane approaching right now, because of the eclipse and Labor Day, we had an extra 1.5 million people in our county right here. So if they decide to get bottled water and toilet paper, it's gone. In fact, one of my friends today at the Aloha Water Sports said he went to get water for the business, and it was all gone. Couldn't find any water in the stores. And so that's how close people run to their, you don't have to wait until you're down to the last roll of toilet paper before you go get some. And in our society today, there's less planning, I think, than there used to be on some of those. We take for granted that the supply chain of what we use and consume is just going to be there. And not necessarily. When I queued this up, one of my other projects was a year ago when Hurricane Matthew came here. I went to the Walmart that was basically the generators failed, and they lost over $100,000 worth of refrigerated and frozen food. So the shelves were empty there. What would you
already, Robert? Is it starting to turn into?
Well, we...
Can I just say one thing, Robert? Look at the amazing colours with what's happening on the sand and the actual dark of the clouds and the night still.
Oh, yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah. And that is, it's never the same. It's never the same. Now, I can tell you it looks like the tide is going out. This would be about mid-tide. Mid-tide is one of the prettiest times out in this area because of how flat the sand is right there. And then when a little thin wave comes over that, well, it'll make it perfectly flat. See what we have on the far left. Let's see, I'm zooming in on the sun now, but there's what's called hydrostatic pressure. We've got all the pressure of the ocean pushing water actually under the sand. So even though the tide goes out and it's not covering the top of the sand, there's a lot of pressure there. And then I'll show you this right here now. Okay, so where I'm showing the cursor right there, it's drier, but it's still like a moist sand. The tide came up that high. And then the water comes down through the sand, and then it's coming in from the ocean as well. So it'll stay pretty wet there for a while. And on some of the time lapse that I've done with the sun being out just without much cloud cover, it'll turn it a brighter, almost white color or an off-white. This will stay pretty dark for quite a while here. But the symmetry where the cursor is right now, the clouds above there and then the clouds below on the sand, just gorgeous. And what that indicates is how flat that is. That's one of the things that it's virtually a plane mirror. So when I started doing this about a year ago, one of the things that I would say would be sea level liquid mirrors. We're at sea level, and it's actually a liquid mirror that you can walk on. You can walk on, you can see buildings on it. And so when a building looks perfectly vertical above ground, and then you're looking at the reflection on the sand and it's a little bit tipped, well, that's merely a slight difference in the elevation
Robert.
of the sand. Oh, thank you, Karen.
Mate, Robert, in the chat room, Suzette, Suzette Ann, what she says is, what gorgeous photography, Robert.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, it's really a joy to get to do this. I know that it's a tapestry of imagery that's just so, it's all around us here, and I just love to go and capture it and share it with people.
Joey says, very nice, Robert.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know what? One day I was coming in to do the photography, and we have golf courses around, and then there's businesses and that with some lighting. Well, what happened? It was so calm for such a sustained period of time that I could see the little moisture, the clouds, the fog right above the little ponds that are on the golf courses. Much like you're looking at the haze that's over the water here. So I'm going to pause that for just a moment. We've got all the birds up in the air. I think maybe you can see some of them. But here's where that sailboat is, right where I'm moving the cursor. And to the right there, that's so calm. And that's just, it'll do that. And that's one of the challenges with capturing long distance shots above the flat water. Like when I go to take a long distance shot of the Myrtle Beach skyline, which is 20 to 30 miles away, and there's over 400 feet of missing bulge of water. It's not there, and I know that most of us on this Google chat or watching on YouTube are aware that curve isn't there. But for example, the moisture in the air reflects the light, bounces it back, and obscures the view of it. When I went up to Michigan a few months ago to visit my dad and our sons, I went across to Washington Island, which is at the end of Door County. It's the thumb or the peninsula that goes out into Lake Michigan. Not where Joshua Nowicki took the long distance shot that gained quite a bit of notoriety. It's the same body of water though. At the bottom of the lake is Chicago. Well, anyway, up at the end of this peninsula, I could see 80 miles away. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that Dave Marsh is in the chat room, and he says he loves your work.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave. Yeah, I enjoy yours as well. You've done a great job with the moon race. I've really enjoyed watching that.
Two amazing men.
Well, you know, part of the dynamic, like for me, is that I had a proclivity to see some things photography-wise, and it was funny. Back when there was film, it was kind of expensive, and I would get Joni would give me the camera to take some pictures, and I would just go crazy with the shutter. I just snapped a whole bunch of pictures. Some of them would be really cool, and that's part of the nature of photography, is that I might have to take quite a few shots to get the shot that I really want to highlight there. But what I was going to say, for example, with spherical trigonometry, 8 inches per mile squared, 2,300 miles as the eagle flies from Myrtle Beach to Long Beach, coast to coast, from South Carolina to California, all the way across North America. It's roughly 2,300 miles. That's over 650 miles of hump that should be in the middle, elevation. Now, with 2,300 miles, that's over 30% grade, I believe that would be. Now, when we went up and down mountains in West Virginia and North Carolina, there would be a 5 or a 6% grade. So in the writings of some of the Earth is not a globe out of the 1800s, they would talk about, canals, railways, bridges are all basically on a level datum. They're horizontal, and although there's slight grades that a train will go up and down, There's no locomotive that's ever been constructed that could operate on a railway 8 inches per mile to the square. It couldn't happen. So it's very obvious, and this is not just an intellectual thing. Normally, when I am attacked on a post that I make, if I go to one of the groups like the original Globe Sphere group, I think there's people paid to be ugly to those that are not of the official narrative. I believe there's paid shills and trolls. And but anyway, the normal attack is on the person, not on the information. That's what I've noticed. Because I've never had anybody send me any data in the year that I've been asking to private message me the proof of where you found the curve. If you can find it, let me know, because it certainly isn't on the body of water that covers the face of the earth. And for gosh sakes, it's not in Kansas, it's not in Texas. I mean, in our hunk of the world. I've driven across the country and I've flown across the country multiple times. And the other interesting thing, they'll talk about the Coriolis effect, which is really funny. They went into great detail about the Coriolis effect, but as a projectile leaves the muzzle of a gun, and yet it's ridiculous because a plane couldn't land on a spinning ball. That's absolutely impossible.
Absolutely impossible.
Yeah, and not only that, traveling east or west on the Earth.
I flew yesterday, Robert. The land was not moving. The only thing that was moving was the plane. Right.
Now, in part of what happens, we're able to notice that more because we are aware of that, and yet the world of individuals that are programmed to the contrary, they haven't been deprogrammed yet. Because of that, they're going to see the curve. They're going to. So I haven't had anybody tell me they feel the movement. One lady popped on one of my posts and said the reason we don't feel the movement is because the atmosphere goes with it. I said there's no movement. God's word says there's no movement.
Mach 80, Robert, Mach 80. Would we be able to cope with Mach 80?
Yeah, that's what is that? 66,000 miles an hour. That's and then hurling through space at somewhere around 500,000. But just the 1,000 mile per hour, 1,038 at the equator, that can't be felt. And if there was any wobble, we would see it on the perfect glassy water. There would be ripples in the water.
Or spin. Have you seen that particular effect?
Oh, which is that series?
I came across one YouTube where they actually showed how they do that with plane motors, how they solve these particular powers on their blades, etc. for a spin, all that power on that particular stuff. And then
I did see something of that a while ago. I would actually like to find that video again. If you run across that, please send me the link. I'd like to share that. What I want to do right now, this is actually a pretty good illustration of this. In the middle of the shot or close to it, just to the right of middle, where the sun is coming down in front of us, there will be the break in the light beam because of the elevation of the water. And then when the wave isn't there, it's more perfectly flat. I've got some of them that are just so glassy. It's so gorgeous and so obvious. But there we've got a real solid light beam, and when the waves come in, it'll break it up, and there's a shadow on the leading edge of the wave. That's all something that I guess I would say I'm a bit of a photographic forensic expert, simply by the nature of what I do. I spend thousands of hours doing it, and I notice the slightest details of it. Doesn't mean I understand all of the details. It just means I understand a lot of them. Now here we've got kind of a thin amount of clouds around the where the sun is popping through, and look at how brightly that lights that up. Now, when we look at a sunrise from a distance, we can see the beauty of it. Keep in mind, there's no filter on the lens right now. I'm utilizing the filter of the atmosphere, and that's just what I'll do. We've got enough sunrises coming here that I'll just keep on doing that. I'll just keep on using the sun and the clouds, the way they interact. And the beauty of it is amazing. Now, I know what happened here. I was talking to Alex, who came on up. He had a near-death experience, and we were talking. So my camera was just sitting there, and the sun went out of the shot. But now is a good time to illustrate something even different. The sun is above, of course, where the brightest spot on the water is. That's just how that works. Sometimes I'll get even caught up with looking at the beauty of the sun and missing the beauty of how it lights things up. So like when, we can just see the beauty of that. I think that's gorgeous. Yeah, there's Alex. He was sharing how he died. He was killed in a car accident, and he was, his heart had stopped for 7 minutes, and then he was resuscitated and brought back to life. Pretty fascinating, pretty amazing.
Wow,
story.
that's quite a long time. That's quite a long time to be gone, isn't it? We have a couple of our members who have died and not died.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Matt Rowe was about 30 when he died and didn't die. Well, he did die, but he came back. Chris
Monk had that happen too,
and came back.
Yeah, I don't know if I technically died. I was mostly dead, and I came back. Here in the middle of the shot, we've got this is an osprey, and I've got a picture of an osprey. Could be this one. I don't know. It's out in the same neighborhood, catching a fish out of the water, but he's looking right at me. He's looking straight down at me, which is understandable. I'm out on the end of the walkout that is right there. But I had a mention of an eagle looking directly at me. One of the times I was out by the lighthouse in Wisconsin, I was about a quarter of a mile away, and what I showed is why I believe the eagle looked directly at me, or directly at the eye of the observer on the photo I posted. Because of the angle of the sun was shooting directly at me. It was a sunrise, and the light bounced off the lens and up to him because I'm zoomed right at him. So it's a mathematical equation. It'd be like if you were looking at a geometric example, geometry, I didn't do real good with math. However, I understand the principles of it. It would be line of sight from the sun bouncing off my lens and right up into the eagle eye. Right there, we've got the sunspot right in the middle.
I don't think you need maths, Robert. I don't think you need maths, and because you take a mate as you, and you pick up sunspots, don't you, as well? You've got the sunspots on some of your photography there.
Yeah, there it is, right there. I found it interesting to see how that moves around on some of the different photography where it is. You know, some people. Well, I won't speak for some people. I'll speak for me. When I realized that we were being lied to at such a massive scale about so much, like, oh my gosh, you mean Einstein isn't a genius? No, he was a shill. Okay, now Tesla is a genius. I really enjoy a lot of his work and developments and technology that he brought to the world. We're using it right now, the electricity and what it does in that. But looking at the world from a perspective where I get to discover some of the things that are actually going on that we're not going to hear from the scientific community, because quite frankly, that's pretty much a religion that promotes a godless explanation for our existence. And obviously with my proclamation that I thought I was born again until I actually was about 3 years ago, coming up on Reformation Day, or October 31st, or as the other team typically celebrates as Halloween. I mean, unaware people might put masks on and think nothing of it, but keep in mind there are actual Satanists in this world that do child human sacrifice, adult human sacrifice. That kind of thing is still going on. A lot of people don't even want to acknowledge it or consider that reality. Now, when I look at the picture right in front, I'm going to pause it there and try and get that cursor out of the way. These clouds, this is right in front of the sun. We can see that. And over here, it very much appears like there are clouds next to it, to the sun and behind the sun. My sun in the cloud Clouds video, I believe, was shared so many times because the appearance of that was so obvious. I don't know exactly how to explain it. I've heard some say that the sun is a bit of a converter. We've seen Nikola Tesla or a person that's emulating him as an actor hold a fluorescent tube that's illuminated because it's approaching an electrical source. I've heard people say they've taken a fluorescent tube and walked out near power lines and it'll light up. It'll turn it on. So with the sun and the moon, are we looking at a light source that has that's being activated somewhat by the electricity in the atmosphere? Now, right here, what I want to show you is something that I can notice where my cursor is. This is like a jet trail right there, and I can see it ever so thin in front of the sun right there. So just because I can't explain some of the appearance, this is one case where I can clearly see that the jet trail is in front of the sun, and not behind the sun, but in front of it. Even though it kind of has the appearance that it's behind, what really makes it interesting, and this is okay. So right here, I can see it, and I can see it on the screen. This little jet trail right here actually does go in front of the sun right there. Maybe you can see that. So what I look for, and like I mentioned in the Sun and the Clouds video, I saw the setup occurring. The setup that I was looking for is this. A really thick cloud that is like going to go across the sun. It's going to go between me and the sun, and it's going to block out some of the light. So like it's horizontal, and it's going to reduce the amount of output from the light of the sun, so it doesn't overwhelm my optic. This right here is a pretty clear orb, and yet it's relatively low in the sky yet. Okay, when that's up higher in the sky, I'm not going to see much of that. At sunrise and sunset is when that particular anomaly is going to be more likely to be captured. That's what I've noticed. So I've got a lot of content of that, and I don't just continually post it because the Sun and the Cloud video was enough for me to say, hey, what do you make of this? That'll do. And enough people actually posted it that it went out there and it's been discussed quite a bit. What I'd like to show you here, where I'm moving my cursor, is the edge of the marsh right there. And the elevation of the sun particularly is highlighting that. It's right at the horizon. So that's where the sun really highlights the presence of that flat water that's horizontal that we can see at the horizon. Now the P900 has an architect or a landscape feature where a virtual horizon can be used. And when I utilized that, I found that the actual horizon was more accurate than the virtual horizon. So when I'm looking out at the ocean and I've got my camera zoomed all the way out with no magnification, I'm not sure what is the width of what I'm looking at. I don't really know.
It seems to be a setting on the P900 that you can set it on the moon, and it will actually work exactly the same on the sun.
Oh, yes. Well done, Series. We were talking to Bad Christian this week before. So you say, Series.
Yeah, you have some presettings in that you can choose the moon as a presetting, and that you can then focus that it focuses the moon and that it brings it right in the picture big enough to.
Interesting. Yeah, I've used the moon setting, and then there's also a beach setting that's pretty interesting as well.
On the same that you can actually also see the sunspots.
Wow. I'm going to show you something that I think is pretty unusual. It kind of caught me off guard. So bear with me. I hope I don't lose my broadcast here or my connection with you. Here's the mirror. There I am waving my hand.
Hello, Robert.
Hey there. Okay, so the mirror is right straight in front of the camera. I'm turning the lens of the camera here. So now this is directly in front, which is the video that's right there. It's a bit bright there, but I'm going to slide this over. It's actually facing away me, but it's showing both. It's kind of interesting because the line of sight is shooting over towards the room there, but if I have them angled away from each other, isn't that kind of interesting? It kind of caught me off guard when I saw that. Now, if I move this TV just a little bit, that won't happen. It's the line of sight away. It's the TV is pointed away from the mirror, yet the mirror still sees it. I think it's kind of interesting. Part of the and what we're looking at, if you're looking for the curve, part of the curve that you can find is the little droplets of water, atomized liquid, atomized moisture. And they're spherical, the little droplets are, as best I can tell, and they bounce light all over the place. And that's part of what we're seeing when we're looking at clouds and the apparent hot spots in the clouds. So it's pretty fascinating to me. Like right here, what you're looking at is the tide coming in, coming up. So that'll actually change the reflection as well. Where that light beam is right now, at low tide, it's going to be roughly 5 feet lower. And you wouldn't see that. That's the extreme example of it. But even as it changes an inch or two, it changes. It's all changing. So here, right at the coastline, the land is very flat all around us here, South Carolina, and the water goes in a long way. Now we've got a pond right in our backyard, and it's connected to a little waterway. And then there are rivers. The Waccamaw River just down the road is only like maybe 10 feet below the roadway that's here. And when we have flooding, it's up quite a bit higher. I'm questioning the elevation all around. I don't really know what it is. I get where I ask Siri what my elevation is here at this house, it's about 30 feet. And when I ride my motorcycle over to the beach, it doesn't seem like I've dropped 30 feet. It doesn't seem like I've gone downhill 30 feet. So I'm not really sure. And you might think, well, Robert, why does that matter? Well, there's a storm called Irma that, may come near us, and we might have to go quite a bit inland to get away from the ocean that's coming this way. We're already getting some waves from it.
One second. Robert, we've got Chris. Hi, Chris. Chris, hello.
Oh, yeah, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey guys, carry on. I'm just I'm going to listen in here.
Welcome, Chris.
As Robert's come on today because the hurricane that's coming their way, but there's supposed to be 3. What do you make of all the hurricane stuff just before Robert carries on for a little bit?
Well, I've been tracking them and just watching the storms and the track centers and checking the Doppler radar and Irma's I guess in the near the islands there south of Florida and kind of headed in that direction. I think he expected to maybe make landfall in the Carolina region, right?
It's possible. That's one of the models that it may end up going north. Yeah, we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
What do you make of them? Do you think they're real, or do you think they're engineered ones?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, right? I mean, they're real, but I mean, they've been messing with the atmosphere and stuff for so long that we're obviously it's partially man enhanced, right? Because they keep adding stuff up there, and it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, there's
it's not necessarily that they're the overall frequency and intensity is changing so much. It's just because they seem to be more the energy seems to be more localized, right, to a certain point.
I just find these amazing that these get engineered like this because like when I came back on this plane or going to Holland on the plane, the clouds are so low. This isn't happening miles up in the sky. This is happening just above your heads.
Yeah, for me, like it's a bit of a snowball effect. I think they've been, like I said, they've been spraying barium and all kinds of stuff up in the atmosphere to whatever they've been using it for, to enhance microwave frequencies and transmissions and communications and study magnetic fields and all the stuff they've been using it for. And so what happens is because there's that extra particulate up there that gives the natural occurrences the ability to take on more energy and localize it and focus it because it just adds that extra carrier, so to speak, right? So the particles can become more charged and more dense in a local zone. So you just get, more focused storms that have more power.
Chris, you mentioned something that I hadn't really seen from this perspective now. I've been aware of geoengineering and the conductive particulate that's added, the nano aluminum, barium, strontium that we've heard about. People have done excellent research on that. Well, the atmosphere is positively charged, and obviously actually the Earth is the ground. It's the negative. And that interaction between the two, now seeing this from the understanding that they're lying about the nature of our world, that there's that the ether and the interaction with the polarities and possibly causing the light, the greater and lesser light to operate. We don't really know. The sun and the moon. As far as how they actually work, we can't really trust NASA anymore. So what is the reliable, truthful explanation of how they work? I don't exactly know. There's quite a bit of speculation, but it had, like Tesla was saying, it had something to do with the energy within the ether, and I believe that that's very probable. Seems to make sense to me.
And that's part of it too, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at too, is that they've added all this to the atmosphere, and so like you said, what happens is the positive and negative and neutral gets out of balance. So you end up with storms that are more intense, more focalized, more unpredictable.
Yeah, it's not like they even have to necessarily utilize other frequencies or like the Wi-Fi or the HARP type technology. Just the atmosphere itself and the polarity will have its effects magnified because of that particulate. But the salt
exactly
air,
right, because you've got that conductor particulate already in the air, right? So once a storm starts to form, and it starts to pull more of that into the eye of the storm, so to speak, and that's exponential growth. So as the particulate focuses in the eye of the storm, it picks up more and more charge, but it's at a local point. So you'll end up with a storm that's much more intense. It might be smaller, but the overall energy within a smaller system is now greater because it's full of this added particulate that wouldn't be there in nature. So nature doesn't have a way to distribute the energy evenly. So normally you'd have a bigger storm in a storm front, but it would be less powerful just because it's spread out over a larger area. So I see we're probably going to see storms that are a lot stronger and just more focused. Things.
Yeah. And that's part of the.
Can I just say that Stan's joined us? Stan, hello, Stan. My dear.
Right.
Just explaining a bit. They're talking about this hurricane and storm. So sorry, carry on then.
Greetings, Stan. Well, in the exploration of elevation, it may seem to be a little bit more of like, oh, I'm kind of curious what the elevation is. Like, in the middle of the country, is it 700 feet or 500? May not be as big of a deal. Being 5 minutes away or 5 miles or so, 5 to 7 miles from the ocean and less than 30 feet above sea level, if I'm maybe only 10 feet above sea level, that's a bigger concern. When we had Hurricane Katrina make landfall in Louisiana, there was a storm surge that went in over 30 miles. I'm a lot closer than that. So, where you can survive a downpour and flooding that goes into the low spots, that's one thing. When the ocean comes in, it just has a tremendous amount of power, and the waves and the wind together, over 100-mile-an-hour winds and big waves. Well, that's a 1-2 punch that'll take down large concrete, steel reinforced structures, let alone a little dwelling that is made out of 2x4 and sheetrock and vinyl siding. It's not going to handle that. That's why one of the first things I did was I went and I got 8 leashes for our kitties. And that may not sound like a big deal. We may need to load them up in a car and in 2 cars and go for a ride inland a ways. And just to imagine getting to the cars in a storm, it can be a challenge. So I didn't want us to have a loose cat in the neighborhood with lightning and rain. And wow, our cats have super skills. They're the Sphinx kitties. They jump really high. They're really kind of curious creatures. But anyway, I didn't want that to be much of an issue. We might have to evacuate.
All the cats with you. Don't want to leave one behind. Can I just say that Artist has joined? Hello, Artist.
Who joined?
I joined. Hey, Robert. Hey, Chris. Hey, Siri. Hey, Patricia.
Yo.
Hey, Stan.
Hello,
In
hello.
the shot right now, in the middle is once again the reflective sand, but then the really calm atmosphere. What'll end up happening? Some of my photography was done out here. That temperature, the water temperature is in 90 degrees, about 80 to 90. The air temperature is in the 80s or so, high 70s, low 80s, and then later on in October and such, there will be where the water will actually freeze on my boots out there. The dew will. It'll be in the 20s sometimes, high 20s, and the temperature differential is phenomenal. And the horizon is really crisp and clear. One of the reasons why I mention that is if you go to my photo album, eternalperspectivebible.com, what you'll find there is a variety of the seasons where that you can see some of that. So what I learned through the photography is I can be driving through the mountains and it's a beautiful place and it's just gorgeous to see how the clouds hang like a thick gauze in and out through the mountain passes, and it's so obvious that there could nowhere possibly be a rotation and clouds act like that. It's just impossible. We know that, but a lot of people are unaware of that, and they don't notice it. They just look at it and say, "Oh, that's so pretty." I digress a bit here. What I mean is, I could go through a monument area that's absolutely gorgeous, a national park or something like that, and it's gorgeous. And then there are a few days a year, or there's little windows of opportunity to catch shots that are truly spectacular. And that's what I'm finding out about like local photographers like I am. I've got some shots of this area that are absolutely spectacular, and it's not like
We know, Robert.
Oh, thanks, Karen.
Robert.
Well, and what it is
Robert, your work is amazing, and if everybody doesn't realise in the chat room that Robert goes down to the beach every day and films this stuff for everybody.
Oh, thanks, Karen.
Robert, do you get enough temperature differential to capture like what's it called, a Fata Morgana type effect? Like, is there enough where you are, or would you need to be more north or south?
What is? If you could explain what that is, I could. I'm not familiar with the term.
Well, it's like a mirage, but there's so much temperature differential, and then there's old stories where the northern mariners, when they were sailing north and or south, they would be actually plotting these islands on the maps. And but what it was the atmospheric effects creating mirages that were so intense that they thought they were mapping islands to a magnetic, to their compass, and they were drawing them on map. But what they really were was just a wall. It was just a walrus. It was a walrus laying on the beach, but it was so huge in the sky that it looked like an island compared to the ship. But it was just a walrus with the back of a walrus laying on the beach, right?
Isn't that something? Well, what I've noticed are some of the mirage effects, and some of them are absolutely spectacular. Where this kind of atmosphere here is really interesting looking. Well, out on Lake Winnebago, up in Wisconsin, they have walleye festivals and bass tournaments, fishing tournaments, and you might think, well, big deal. Well, these guys have boats that'll go 70 miles an hour to get to their fishing spot, and it's like an absolute race. They race on out there, and sometimes when it's really calm, there aren't waves like this. It'll be a glassy lake that has almost no ripples in it. And Kiefer Mercury Marine tests boats out there that I've seen go over 100 miles an hour on the water. That's really a trip to see a big boat go that fast over glassy water. Well, the point back to your question, it sometimes look like they're flying above the water, and it's an optical illusion.
The Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, there you go. So
speaking of interesting things in the water, I was watching your video there. I think it was last week there. The video I think you did with I think it was at your father's memorial. You were standing outside in the water there, and you were looking at the light at the hospital, the emergency center where you were taken into. And it was just interesting. I was watching your video, and I can't remember exactly the time stamp on it, but if you go back and watch it, there's a spot where you said something to the effect of God works in mysterious ways, that type of idea, right? And just as you said that, this fish over your right shoulder jumps out of the water and does something and goes back into the water. It's like that catfish from that movie, The Big Fish, where he was telling the story about the big fish that grabs the ring or whatever. That was totally great.
Well, I will end up actually going back, and I'll watch some of my broadcasts like that just to see what I can notice, and I critique them not just for what I say. It's also for what we see and what the sound quality is, with or without the case on it, with or without a mic, and all that. There's a lot of dynamics that go into this, and it's just really amazing to me how that all works out. That hospital that was in the background, I was flown there when I had a suicide attempt when I was on Tylenol PM. I didn't want to live anymore, but the Prozac was a catalyst for that. So my perspective of the reality that we're living in is so different without the modification from the pharmaceutical industry. So I won't take pharmaceuticals anymore. It's not that I wouldn't take an antibiotic if I absolutely had to have one. I'll lean towards a topical treatment if I've got an infection and so forth. But as far as taking a drug so that I feel different, oh wow, Smeagol's changing what we're looking at. Yeah. Let me show you Smeagol. There he is in all his magnificence. There, he put his foot on the keyboard. Yeah, that's our one of our naked kitties. He can jump 6 feet tall from a standstill. He's a trip. I call him a super cat, actually. Yeah, I was making coffee one morning, and all of a sudden he was down by my foot, and then he was up on top of the refrigerator. So like here's three ladies.
Can I ask you something though, Robert? Robert, can I ask you something? Stan, tell Robert what you think he'd capture if he had a 360 camera down there on the beach.
What, with the sky?
Yeah, all of that you're seeing there. What would Robert get like?
Well, you'd start to get the tracks, in the sky. You'd see how it's all working if you had a 360.
And that's, I believe, what I'm going to end up doing. The investment for what I have, I just got another tripod, a ProMaster carbon fiber tripod that was $200. That's more than the 360 camera. So yeah. I'll be doing that. I just need to look into that a bit more. That'll be one of the.
And Stan, tell him it's not. I mean, I haven't actually used one, but they're not difficult, is it? He would just take it down there, turn it on, leave it where he's got to leave it, and then carry on with his P900.
Yeah, you can run them. They're so easy to run. You just literally put it on a tripod, get it level, and then push the button, leave it.
That sounds excellent. Tell me more.
That's all you need to know. They're so simple to use. You ain't got to focus it or anything. You literally put it down, push the button, and just let it do its thing. You ain't got to you ain't got to aim it anywhere, anything.
360.
No.
Yeah, it's facing every which way, up, down, left,
now
right.
On yours, have you Stan, have you done a live broadcast with the 360 camera too?
Not yet.
Okay, and I'm wondering what kind of a transmission we'll get. It seems like it would be a massive amount of data, right?
It is, yeah.
And so that's one of the issues that I ran into was the lack of bandwidth for uploading. Sometimes there won't be enough for a broadcast, depending on where I am, based on the technology that's there. There's plenty of infrastructure here with the 16 million guests that we get a year here. That can be a problem. Most of the condos are cell tower, or many of them are cell towers, which is another issue.
Do you think in the morning though, Robert? Like really early in the morning when it's the sun's coming up and no one's down at the beach.
Oh yeah, and that's what I found out. The early in the morning isn't a problem. problem for the broadcasting. What can be a challenge is when I would come home and I would try and upload a video to either YouTube or Facebook, there's too much bandwidth being used where, you know, I would maybe have to babysit it a long time to capture, or I mean to get it to post. So that's one of the challenges. Now tonight we have I don't know if I'm going to be able to get much of it. The moon will be rising out of the ocean tonight, a full moon virtually, I believe 99%, and that's going to happen roughly a half an hour after the sunset or so.
I'm already
I think tonight's the harvest moon, right? So it should be like the biggest for the entire year type of thing.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. Massive.
So that should give us like a good indication of the dome lens effect that we're seeing, right? And rather than what you would expect to see on a globe model that doesn't have those types of possibilities that could even change an image and magnify it to that extent.
Well, and part of when I remember hearing like about the supermoon, well, that didn't make any sense to me then. It makes perfect sense to me now. It's actually closer. It's closer because of my proximity to it. And that's
exactly right. Obviously it's an elevation change and an angle change, and the refraction through an elliptical lens, combined just makes a huge moon in the sky, right?
Oh yeah.
Because how could you see it where Stan can see the same effect in the UK and you can see the same effect in the United States, and the temperature differences are completely different. So it's not a temperature effect or anything like that at all. Completely different.
Now, Stan, are you aware of a particular YouTube channel that has quite a bit of 360? I haven't been to yours, Stan, but do you do quite a bit with a 360 view on your particular YouTube channel?
Yeah. I've got a 360 camera running all the time.
Have you put a couple of videos into the chat room to play then, Stan?
Yeah, I can do.
That would be cool. I'd like to see that.
Play them, Stan.
I'll post them in the chat, and Siri's he's gonna have to play them because I'm uploading stuff at the minute.
Chris seems ready to play his guitar.
Yeah, we've missed that, Chris. We haven't had a guitar play for a while.
Oh, was this the interlude music while you load up software and pictures and stuff?
Yeah. He plays the guitar very well.
Yeah.
Series will get ready. Yeah.
Some ocean like. Are you ready yet?
Yay! Thank you, Chris.
Ooh.
That was kind of like oceany kind of music, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
There you go. This interlude was brought to you by Monk Music Incorporated. Yeah. 450.
Well, we love it.
Ottawa.
Whoa, Stan, could you just explain a little bit about what we were seeing there?
That was a rainbow at 40k.
Oh.
It distorts. There was distortion. This is at ground level. We noticed it the other day. I thought, something to discuss. There's clear distortion in that video, in that rainbow. I'll defocus anyway. Obviously, this is one and low down. You can see the full circle in this one as well.
Right, but it's not a perfect circle, right? It's more of an elliptical type of egg shape, right?
I don't know.
Kind of.
It sort of looks like a circle.
What do you mean by distortion, though? Is it not?
Well, it's just it's out of focus, the one at altitude.
Oh yeah.
Like, we don't quite get it. Why is it out of focus? Why does it look funny? But yeah, these are stills. These are not videos. These are just stills we're viewing in the VR.
What do you mean? Because it's quite close on that picture. It should be the actual rainbow should be a lot more precise, but it's not. Is that what you mean?
On the altitude one, the first one we watched, it's defocused. It just doesn't look quite right.
Gonna have to answer that one.
Yeah. Well, it's just something to, something we noticed, something to look at.
Well, I thought it was beautiful, Stan. Thanks so much for that. What is the name of your YouTube channel so I can go there?
It's Stan Smith.
Stan Smith.
Yeah, if you type in Stan Smith 360 or Stan Smith time lapse.
Flat Earth.
Yeah, flat Earth. Anything could bring it up. There's a lot on there, though, a lot of Stan Smiths. So you might have to look for me. But if you see a picture of the moon, that's me.
Okay, thank you.
If you play the last link I put in their series, that's the 360 camera from my roof, the time lapsing.
Play another one then. I'll just present series again.
The last one, or?
Yeah, the last one. This is the one when you can spin around, like you can use your mouse to look about,
Looking at you.
Is it working? Yeah, look, there you go. Okay. Yeah, see that white speck, that's the moon. This is on a time lapse. It takes a photo every 5 seconds. So it's times 150 is the speed, 150 times faster. But it's just great for tracking everything up there.
The stars don't look like they're moving.
Oh, that's street light.
Okay. Whoops, stupid me. Whoops.
Alrighty, Stan. There.
You only
got you on my camera right now. I'm a subscriber. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. But yeah, I upload the 360 like once a week because it takes a while to upload that.
Look,
I've been
so low though.
Been a little bit busy just lately.
I really like your time lapse video, Stan, of when you can watch the clouds form and reform, and basically the same cloud will, the same shape of cloud will form in the same place over and over and over all day long, right?
Yeah, they just keep rolling, don't they? It's like they're hitting something, just rolling.
Wow.
Yeah, they just sometimes they'll just appear at like the same focal spot, right? The cloud will just kind of form there and then dissipate, and then form there and dissipate. It's like it's almost pulsating. It's forming like within a magnetic focal point, almost like the energy is focused there, and it just condenses and cools and condenses.
So we need to put a lens on this camera, so it's like, the people have glasses, don't they, like optical glasses, and they can go inside and they're clear, and then they walk out and they're dark. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
the transition.
Yeah, that's it. Transition. Yeah, I need to make a transition lens, so at night time it's clear, and then in the daytime it goes dark, so you can track the sun.
So what do you think is it about the clouds just keep remaking themselves? Because this must be happening everywhere. Like if I stuck a camera up, would I see the same clouds remaking themselves and remaking themselves? And don't forget, they're not very high either. They're only just above your head.
Yeah, you definitely would. But they change though, don't they, Chris? They're not always in the same spot.
No, not always, but so I just noticed that some of them do in different layers. Right? It depends on the layer you're looking at. Like some will seem to be rolling underneath, and others are just appearing and disappearing in the same place.
There's definitely three or four layers in the sky. You know.
Oh yeah.
Maybe more, but that's what my cameras see is different layers. There's some chemtrails for you. They probably.
You should invent that idea. You should invent that idea for a transition lens for 360 cameras and patent that. It'd be a great idea.
Someone else is already on it now.
Probably, since you've said it live on.
Hurry up then, because I want to buy one.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be your first customer.
Necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah.
Can you not make your own stand when you haven't got time? Because you're a carpenter, aren't you?
Well, I'm a bricklayer. My trade is, but I do everything. Do all sorts of building. You give me a bit of land, I'll give you a house.
Yeah. Cool. You.
And then when you want to build a house,
So I don't like
stones and a hammer and away.
Yeah, I don't like doing it anymore though. I like looking at the sky, you know.
I feel really honoured that we have such an amazing amount of people around us and have come to Sun and Moon and everything. I mean, Artist is amazing, Chris is amazing, Series is amazing, Patricia's always amazing, Robert's amazing, and Stan, we're so lucky, all different aspects, all talking and working together. It's amazing.
Well, it had to be like this. We are drawn to each other.
Yeah, and it's really good that we're all doing separate parts as well, really.
Yeah, indeed. And it all fits together at the end.
That's it. It all comes together.
Turn clockwise. These rays, sun rays, are turning clockwise. Same as the sunspots.
Exactly.
Pretty fast, actually.
Yeah, there's been many a time on these Hangouts when we've been live, when we've had a deep moment. Something's hit you and you think, oh my goodness. Especially yours, Stan, with the rainbow sky.
Yeah, it can wreck your head.
Yeah, because you've got to rethink things again.
Yeah, just when you think you got something figured out, something could throw a spanner in
Got
there. Yeah.
So it is a toroidal field in where free energy came with that particular polygon form, in where he only crosses the plane circle over each other to explain how you actually can see how the toroidal field touching each other is expressed in your own light bubble in that sense, because of your own light body. And these polygon forms are just part of a toroidal field, and you're looking into the inertial plane of the toroidal field, and probably from below, in the sense that they have the energy pulsating below, that they float on the Earth, on the inertial plane of the Earth, and they're just kind of worlds on their own, realms on their own, within their own toroidal field. At least that's what I suspect what it is.
Everything's a toroidal field now, isn't it? Nothing exists without being a toroidal field. Chris's apples couldn't come on the tree if it wasn't for a toroidal field. Oh, hello, Robert.
I'm sorry.
Hang on, just let me turn off. Whoa, that was a bit loud there.
That was almost as bad as when I had to. Do you remember when I added the second one and I got some major feedback?
So what's this now? This is still the moon then, Stan?
That's the moon next day. We've just had a day and that's the next moon past. It'll either have gone up or down depending on what it was doing at that point. It's like at the minute the moon's going up, it's coming back north, so to speak. So if you're in the south looking at the moon, it'd be, let me think about this, it'd be going down in your sky, like lower, but then if you're in the north, it'd be going higher in your sky.
Well, I got a little bit like, I don't quite understand this. I put it on my little video for going to Holland, but I was going to Holland, it was 1 hour, 20 minutes, so they said. I remember like them saying there's a bit of turbulence, everybody put their seatbelt back on, we're landing. And then basically when we landed, they said over the antennae 30 minutes, but on leaving they said we've made up 35 minutes. That meant it took me 45 minutes to get from Southend to the airport near where Ceres lives. There's hundreds of miles, like 400 and something miles between me and that Southend and the other airport, and we did it in 45 minutes with a propeller plane. Stewardess on the way back, she said sometimes it's the winds and sometimes they turn around quicker, so they just leave the airport earlier. I know when we were leaving, we didn't leave early. We left on time and we made up 35 minutes of an hour and 20 minute journey. I mean, I just think that's incredible, don't you? Like, Ceres worked out the propeller plane would have to be doing 500 and something miles an hour. Oh, and we're not going 500 and something miles an hour. I don't understand all that. I guess what did you reckon, series?
So you're breaking up?
Oh, sorry, typing. What did you recommend? The fact that you could make up this distance, what were you passing over? The magnetic, was it not? She said, wasn't.
That's really bad. Stop talking.
Yeah.
Wait for a moment. Yeah.
Let it catch up. You have to pause whatever you're doing in the background.
I have.
That's better. You're a proper robot.
I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting here. But
I'm still doing it a little bit.
well, you carry on then. You guys talk.
Yeah, I've put in my site for the recordings a flight route recording so that you can actually record your magnetical direction, your GPS location, and your elevation of where you took it, and plot out your compass directions while you fly your plane, and you actually keep it straight with the plane and see where the magnetical directions go. And yeah, it's what I heard through somebody was that pilots used for years magnetical maps to plot a route, and they actually follow these magnetical lines for the large routes or something, and that causes that they mainly fly round routes or something over these particular directions, and that's their main navigation, what they use, and the whole GPS is not completely implemented in planes, etc. So yeah, apparently they were using the magnetical maps to navigate the whole flights through. And yeah,
Thanks, Steve.
I guess by recording you can actually see what your magnetical direction is in while you fly. You were saying, for example, that you were flying south during the whole flight, and I figure that is because it's actually flying over these magnetical lines. And there's apparently also difference in these fields if you take different heights. I found something to actually map it three-dimensionally, but again, a lot of data and figuring out what it actually is.
It usually is, isn't it, series? Lots of work. Doesn't stop. Robert doesn't stop. Artist doesn't stop. Chris doesn't stop. And Patricia doesn't stop because she always looks up things and checks things. And so none of us stop. It's an ongoing thing, isn't it, of masses of information. Some more than others, though, because obviously some are researching, some are watching.
See, what we need at the minute really is someone in America, in the US, to put up a 360. That is, we haven't got anything from America yet. Not worth.
What's the?
There's so many people and no footage.
So cameras you've got in the UK, are they?
Well, we got UK, Estonia, Guam. Vincent P.
That one down, right, carry on.
Yeah, Vincent P. He's putting one up. He's done a couple of tracks so far, but we need more locations.
So to the chat room, everybody. Stan is putting out. Please, everybody, buy 360-degree cameras.
They're inexpensive.
From all around the world.
They are cheap and they're easy to use.
Would be.
So how many people do you think have got these cameras then?
Inside the video.
Can anybody hear? I can't hear anybody right now. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's okay. We can.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we hear you.
Can anybody hear me right now?
Yes, I turned you down, Robert, because it was echoing.
But he doesn't hear anything. That's the problem.
Okay, he's left it. Come back. I saw that.
Sometimes when you adjust your microphone, your sound is your headphones are gone. I have sometimes the trouble when I change my headphones. The plug is just a little bit loose that the sound goes dead in my headphones.
He's back now.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was going to answer Stan's wanting to see North America or the United States have a 360. I've been looking into it, and I've got the resources available now to go ahead with that. I just want to get the one that's going to serve me the best. Do you have recommendations, Stan, on what you would get if you had your choice? If not that money isn't an option, but like under $700, what would you say?
Well, you could get a couple for $700. My one that we were just watching then from the roof, that was £60, so it's about $100, and you can control that one off of your iPhone and everything.
Yeah, and I know that Nokia has one, or Nikon has one that's around $500, and that's supposed to be pretty good. I'm gonna need to do some reviews.
I've got a Samsung Gear, but you then need a Samsung phone really to be able to work it.
Yeah, I'm an iPhone Mac kind of guy, so I'm gonna need to get something that's Apple compatible for me to be able to do what I don't want to have to learn another system and all of that.
I'll get back to you on that.
Cool. Thank you very much.
I can tell Karen and she can tell you, or we'll talk together about it. I'll do a bit of research.
And you come back. There you go, Stan.
Because everything,
come on.
yeah, everything I use is Samsung. I've got a Samsung phone. I've got the Samsung headset. I've got the Samsung 360. If I'll try and find a 360 Samsung one.
Well, that'll be good if Robert gets one and then he's doing this, and then you've got that person in America for you, haven't you?
Yeah, that's what we need. That is really what we need.
Well, and what I'm going to want to do is try and find a way to put it out the roof of my car. Right now we've got a lot of thunder happening, big thunder. The storm we're feeling the effects of some storms. I do believe that it has something to do with what's happening with Irma, or maybe manipulation of that storm. We don't really know. I know that there's an XRAD radio, NexRad radar stations are supposedly some of the mechanism to manipulate storms. There's a YouTube channel called Dutch Sense. I don't know if you all have ever followed any of his work, but he's done quite a bit on showing weather modification using what has been recorded as being radar stations are part of the network of weather manipulation. And I don't know how real that actually is. I just know that there's weird stuff happening with storms, and it sure appears to be modified.
Oh, they're definitely playing with the weather.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. That's what
pushing it all the time, aren't they? Pushing it all the time. And also Chris has worked out that what they're putting in the sky because they're trying to heat up the atmosphere.
Yeah.
An effect somehow, isn't it? But I just think that they love playing anyway. They've got harp and other things, haven't they? So, and that's what we know about. So goodness knows what we don't know about.
Well, it's like everything. It's all 100% the reverse of whatever they say it is. Just think of it in complete doublespeak in reverse, and you'll know the truth. Right? They say the globe is warming; it's actually cooling. They say they're trying to cool it down by spraying stuff in the air. They're actually trying to heat it up. Right? They're firing microwaves in the atmosphere off of barium nitrides and so forth to study magnetic fields. Well, they're actually creating magnetic fields, right? They're using it to transfer microwaves and scalar waves and communication system, right?
Exactly, and a lot of the water towers, because of their proximity in a community and their elevation, they're ideal for cellular communications broadcast systems. I would think that's having an effect on the water as well.
It's probably affecting our moods and things as well, isn't it? With all this stuff going on that they're doing. No wonder we're mood swinging and things like that.
Well,
humans, hasn't it?
Yeah, and too, I believe that some people will be more susceptible to that than others. There's a saturation level of toxification that can have an effect on that. I try and put the good stuff in and keep the bad stuff out. That's the short version of it, and I can take it highbrow with a lot of technical terms, or just keep it real simple and real straightforward. There's a lot of garbage that is available that people choose to put in their body. I used to do that, and I'm just saying no to that. And yes to what we think about affects how we feel and function as well. It's not just organic substances or chemicals that we either inhale or ingest ingest. It's also the thoughts that we have that have a biochemical, neurological response in our emotional perspective. So when I talk about an eternal perspective, I'm not kidding. It makes a big difference what we think about.
I think, though, Robert, once you become a flat earther, you just look at everything differently, don't you? You know, you realise they're trying to, like, it's not that antibiotics are bad for you, but what they're allowing is people to take one course after another course and another course. And then when they actually really needed the things to work, they won't work because you just, all these antibiotics, you just need them occasionally, not all the time. Like, doctor, unless I have to.
Well, and one of the things
people go to the doctors because they've got a cold, just wasting time.
Well, yeah.
We get illness.
The gut is the stomach is where the neurotransmitters are generated that our brain operates on, our emotions in that, and antibiotics kill off a lot of the healthy gut flora. So if you have an infection that you're taking an antibiotic for, you can offset some of that by taking acidophilus or probiotics, different products like that. However, the bottom line is a healthy body is easier to keep healthy than trying to fix one that's all messed up because of toxic exposure to a symphony of toxins. So part of what we're dealing with is realizing that we've been lied to on a grand scale, and then the rest of the people around us don't appreciate us pointing it out, and then there's an ostracy. We're being ostracized by our surrounding friends and family, and then we're finding a new network of friends and family through the internet and through this form of communications we're doing right now, where people can get to know us, we can get to know them, and there's a sense of community that we realize, wow, we're not the crazy ones or the necessarily the deceived ones, and so there's a bit of a curve of mourning that is involved in this, the death of relationships and the ending of relationships, and then the beginning of relationships. That's all a part of this, and I believe that photography, cinematography, video is a tool for communications where we can share with people the world that we see that's different than the one that we're told.
The only annoying thing is that I would so love it if we could all get together in one room, all of us, especially getting to know you lot on Skype. It'd be brilliant if we all meet up together. We'd all get together. The thing is that we all live in different countries.
Well, and then though, to add to that, Karen, that even though we're in different countries, we can bring a different perspective based on that location to help show the size of the lie. For example, yesterday I was contacted by a software developer. You're going to find this mind-blowing, or at least I did. He's got getbible.net. He's in South Africa, and he's one of my friends on Facebook, and he contacted me after my live broadcast, and he's making the Bible available through the internet. And what was so interesting, he said to me, I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but NASA, an executive high up in NASA, contacted him and wanted to have access to his program. Wow. Isn't that a mind blower? Yeah. I said, well, one of the things you should be aware of is we're not on the same team as NASA. Yeah.
It's a bit strange that they want his information.
Well,
let's ask something, Robert, I want to know what Chris is playing. Chris, what are you doing?
I'm listening to the chat and gaining inspiring ideas and so forth. And in the background here, I'm doing basically building a model of the firmament and electric fields and so what it is, if I go to wireframe here, I can kind of show you probably a little bit better. So wireframe way in the middle here. You'll see there's the inertial center plane with the double toroid, right? And we're on basically on this in this area in the center of inertia, looking through where everything we see is our little dome of personal perspective sitting on a half flat surface, right? So we're way in the middle here. It's reality, right? And as you zoom out, you have the firmament upon the firmament, different layers. And then when I render it, I'm rendering it as a plasma field type of thing, right? So all energy comes from the outside in, basically. And the thing is on the inside, if you're in there, you'll see it actually kind of starts to generate a star field and little planets and things spinning around our head type of idea. So you jump in the camera. Well, actually, it's not rendered in that actual mode here, but still working on it. That's the idea. Depends on how you look at it in the camera view here. Data is going to be kind of chunky.
So like an eye. Eh?
That's all. Yeah. So I see, I can see putting like the UTM square grid, right?
So what's the hole then, Chris? What's the hole in the middle? That's the toroidal field.
That would be the center of the toroidal field, yeah, where that's basically the zero plane of inertia. We just have to put a square map in here and or water and whatever, right? And that's basically the whole thing moves around our heads, right? The whole thing moves, right? The whole thing rotates, and that's what we see as the spinning sky kind of thing.
It's almost look like that we need to take north and south as up and down, and then the inertial plane is what we see in the sky, and everything over the equator as the plane of where the polarities meet.
Right. Then let's see. So I'm just putting on different layers of firmament, right? So one layer after another layer after another layer, lens after lens after lens to see what happens. So there's one layer. Then you see the rainbow-like effects that Stan gets in a 360 lens, right, as you look out through it. Then you add another layer. It creates another star field type of dome effect. Then another firmament layer, right? This one I kind of envisioned as being more like the fluid stars and way out just to see what it looks like from the outside looking in and let it render. Then you start to see, there's rainbow effects and splitting of light and all kinds of fun stuff happening. It takes a while to render, but
wow.
So this one's more art than basically I'm just calling this one art for now because it's just pretty. But I was trying to just in my mind kind of try to figure.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I've actually that question that you had that particular image of the toroidal change, how that actually had these particular even extra levels, where I think these extra levels are the toroidal planes on where the toroidal fields of the planets themselves stacked up, and then where they meet, you had this void part, and then you had the next in the chain. If that is maybe not up and down, or is that actually in the side? How is that chained up?
Right.
Yeah, that's my question. How does it actually chain up?
They would just invert by polarity, right? Each toroid is nested. It's like a gyroscope, right? So each one would be kind of centered around the outside of the plane of inertia. Right? They're kind of locked into a center point of inertia. That's kind of how I see it happening. What's this one here?
That definitely looks like an eye.
Kind of, the planets are like what is it? Electrodes around the atom. Atom is where the plane is.
Yeah, exactly right. Each one's kind of locked into its own path based on charge, and its path is. Yeah.
And then several for each object.
Yeah. So as the toroids kind of nest one on top of the other, one inside the other, and that type of tree of life and toroidal refracting glass type of shape and dome after dome after dome. Right, so it does kind of restrict motion, I would think, right? So you would have, even though the toroidal field is constant, double, the particulates and different charged materials would kind of be restricted into this blue zone here, for example. It's a plasma layer, so to speak. It would go like hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, right? So they're all diffracted and separated by their charge densities, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you would go from solid to liquid to gas to
that's
plasma, and then it would reverse itself. It would go back from plasma to, it would just be the opposite again, right? So you'd go basically solid, liquid, gas, ice, plasma, that type of idea, and then it would just invert and start again. So it would go then to vacuum, and then it would start over again, right? Vacuum to ice, then plasma, then to liquid, then to solid again, right? With every fourth dimension or whatever, every fourth layer, you would get a change in polarity, I think, based on the three states of matter, three states of motion. It's all stacked in threes, and then there's a divider line. The divider line being the fourth dimension, right? That's where it splits and starts again.
And we see only part of it as an individual. I figured with multiple 360s all over the world, we could actually see way more, figure out what is actually happening with the light. You can actually...
it will paint the picture, won't it? You'll be able to see how it's working.
Yeah, and the video I think that Steve and Zach put out there with the other fellow, I can't remember his name, Mike Kavanaugh, maybe? Yeah. I think that's bang on accurate, right? Is because the field is electric, so where the light appears is basically where the field goes, and just it's in motion and focusing to the center.
I'll just add a quick.
Nothing is. It's interesting because it reminds me of that movie. Nothing is where you think it is.
Right? Just a thought I had. It almost looks like if you turn this 90 degrees, those two shapes are looking like lungs of a human. Your lungs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you have your spine in the middle, and on both sides you have the lungs.
Yeah, that's what I kind of use.
Just a thought I had.
Is Robert still there?
Robert?
Is he done a runner?
No, he's there. He's probably just doing something. He's just.
I'm right here. I was just taking care of some things around the room here.
I just had a quick look, and the newer one, the Samsung Gear 360, the 2017 one, that does work with an iPhone.
Nice.
Or so they say on the internet. Anyway, they say that you can download the app and it will work, but it has to be the newer one. And I just had a quick look, and there's some in the United States now for like £70 plus £13 post to the UK, so they'd be even cheaper for you. They'd be like $100, $150, and that is the camera I would go for, because they are, out of all of the 360s, they seem to be the better quality.
So the Samsung latest edition 360 camera for an iPhone compatible is the one you would choose if you were me?
It says it's compatible on the internet. I would read up a little bit more and maybe ask, can I definitely use that with an iPhone?
Yeah, and from what I've seen with what you've done, Stan, it's magnificent. And I've done some time lapse in this area that's in my timeline. Even recently, I posted some of it, and the clouds forming in that around here that are clearly visible. It's really fascinating. And I believe in this particular area, because of the massive amount of evaporation from the ocean and the temperature differential with the landmass nearby, it's optimal for weather generation. That's just what it does. That's what the ocean of the world does largely, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna do this soon. Hey, I'm gonna go to Best Buy tonight. No, I don't know. I would like to. Right now, we've got a really strong storm coming in, and I'm thinking maybe I want to get that before the storm. Now, I do believe that they are waterproof. I know the Nikon was, but I'll need to look into this Samsung and actually see. In fact, all kidding aside, I think that there's maybe enough time for me to do some of that research tonight and maybe pick something up before the storm, whatever of the storm hits us. So I'm gonna bow out for now. Thank you so much for having me on. I do want to look into that and see what I can come up with.
Well, if you get stuck, you've got me now on YouTube, so just send me a message.
Excellent.
If I don't reply, if I don't reply, wrench me.
Yeah, Robert's obviously got other things in his mind because the storm's coming in. If he gets this 360 camera, maybe you should pass each other's email addresses in the chat here, and you could sort of, talk to each other that way.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, Stan, are we connected on Facebook Messenger? I do quite a bit with that.
He's not on Facebook, I don't think.
Not
Stan?
Facebook, mate. No.
Okay, I'll go ahead, but you can get my data if you want on Facebook, I think, without having an account. But I'll go to the YouTube chat on this and I'll post it, or I'll email you through your YouTube channel.
He's on the Hangout chat.
Yeah, be safe, Robert. Too. Take care there, and we'll be thinking.
Alrighty, will do. Thank you all so much. Big hugs to all of you.
Robert, I've come back. for a hug. I've come back
All
for
right,
a hug.
here I am. Good to see you all. Thank you again. We'll be in touch.
Let me know, Robert. Keep in touch this next couple of days to let us know what's happening with this weather.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, y'all.
Stay safe, mate. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Here you go, Stan. He gets his camera. You've got your connection then.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that result.
Yeah. It sounds like he's going to get one, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. They're inexpensive now. They're so cheap, and there's so many of them. A lot of people get them, can't be bothered with them, and just sell them. You know, so you can. I've got mine second hand.
I have a Samsung phone now, and I wonder, is there just an app where it just can see the 360 YouTube?
You can just get an Oculus. They're like 20 quid series. A second hand.
Yeah.
I got a second hand Oculus, and it was so cheap.
I already have a free phone.
What phone is it?
Samsung Galaxy 4 S4.
It might work. I have to have a look. Just try it. If it's free, you ain't got nothing to lose.
Well,
Yeah. So here's a view of that model, same model, just on the inside out. If you wanted to have a look at it, to see
whoa.
how much it looks like a 360 camera. This is actually this is a panoramic view, so you can see how off of other images is bounced down, and you would see it appearing, relatively local, even though it's somewhere else. It's just reflecting on reflection infinity mirrors. So that would almost be like a firmament dome type of plasma field, electric plasma field. And as I spin it,
Chris, can I ask you something? You're showing this to everybody, and you've got models out as well. Could you explain just a little bit to the actual chat room why it's like this, why you see it like this, why it is like this?
well, I started right at the center because we know that a hot iron core can't maintain a magnetic field. So I had to start from scratch and say, well, what could maintain a magnetic field? So I started looking at plasma physics. And so a Z pinch, when you combine electromagnetic fields in a toroidal field that has a plane of inertia at the center of a magnet, is basically it's almost at rest, right? Both fields are spinning opposite each other, but in the center, it's like a center of an eye of a hurricane. So at the center, it's really calm, and things are static, stationary. So that's in my opinion, that would be where reality would start, is where there's less turbulence in electric fields. So I started kind of there with the two toroids stacked on top of each other, and then started working my way out. To that, you end up with these types of shapes because the Z pinch is what they call it. If you look up Z pinch plasma in all the experiments in the laboratories, you end up with that. It's kind of like an hourglass shape type of idea. And within that you end up stacking spheres on tops of spheres in different toroidal separations. But there's a center point because it has to have polarity. So that's a positive, negative, up and down, left, right, in a three-dimensional sense. But a plasma field is actually a fourth dimensional type of reality. Plasma's fourth dimensional. So that's why I started with this. And then just as you start rotating the camera around in this panoramic view, all I did was just rotate it quickly here. You see, well, there's the upturned, the Picard story where he went up in the balloon, the 70, 80 or whatever. I'm not sure how far he went. He went a long ways anyway. The stories of the early explorers that said, I saw an upturned sky, a flat plane with an upturned edge, right? And because we see through our eyes, and our eyes see everything in a panoramic type of view, like a 360 camera. So this is the way it looks. Right. So you would end up with different layers and bowl shapes, and it just depends on how you're looking at it. So if you went up higher or you went on the outside and looked in, it would look like this. But on the inside, looking out, it looks more like this.
So this is why we need your drone, Chris.
Yes, Chris.
Precisely.
Drone.
Yeah, get a drone up there with a 360 camera. So as you can see, now I'm rotating the model so that I'm now going to be soon here. I'll be looking.
And it's your handbag, Chris. It's your handbag you showed us.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. Right. The lower you go, and the lower.
Actual bag. He hasn't got a handbag, have you, Chris? That Chris was showing us ancient
handbags. Yeah, they call them the handbags of the gods. If you look at them, ancient artifacts, it's called handbags of the gods. Yeah. And that's what as you start to rotate the camera and look deeper into the model and get closer to the ground level, well, now you start to see that there's a horizon that you would expect to see right at altitude with like the rainbow effect that Stan gets in his 360 camera. And there it is right there. Right. That's what we see.
Series is showing something, Chris, as well. Whatever series is showing there.
Yeah.
Based on the flower of light seen from the side.
Right, just let me get out of this way. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Say exactly the same thing. Yeah.
There's a kind of chain of back.
Yeah, right. It's the only thing that makes sense. Yeah. So basically what this model here is a three-dimensional, it's a three-dimensional construct of that in three dimensions. then as I rotate it around, I'm just rotating the camera around from your perspective so you can get an idea of what it would look like. Because it is a fourth dimensional type of object, right? You're in it looking out. You're a three-dimensional being inside a fourth dimensional construct, and outside of that is, plasma and electricity and fluids. Yeah. I like this shot. I'm going to let this one render and take a screenshot of it because it's just really cool looking.
Yeah, you definitely like that shape, don't you, Chris? It's your icon.
Maybe I'll make this one once it renders. It's only rendered on 2 out of 32 samples, so this one's going to take a while to render. But kind of what you can see is it would be a stable field in the center and this almost looks like an eclipse to me, but that's a whole other story. Once the donut toroid field lined up to you as an observer, you would see basically a blackness because there was no light coming. This is it. The model's creating this itself. I don't have a black object in there. It's just the way I have the toroidal fields and the glass mediums stacked on each other.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing there. It's just a cancellation of the light. But you can kind of see that there's an orb type planet type thing there that's appearing on this glass lens. It's now image after image after image stacked inside a bubble. But we're down in there somewhere. I don't know where, but in there, in my mind.
Yeah. I wonder how you then completely tie in these particular 4 pillars. How you get these 4 different polarities then on the.
Yeah, I see them as I think I sent you an image there of a quadrupole type of magnet. So if you take a magnet and look at it on the vertical, you get 2 poles. But if you take a magnet and lay it on the side and put it on a CRT screen, you'll actually get 4. It'll split, right? So it has a different effect depending on how you
in one of Ken's
point it at a CRT screen, right? So if you point one end at a CRT screen, it'll make a different toroid. If you lay it on the side, you get 4 poles, right?
I saw in
so we're definitely on
Ken Wheeler's videos where he was playing with magnets on a TV screen. That had this particular north-south direction, but when he turned it over the axis of the north-south, I saw also that there was a kind of east-west and up-down dimension in the magnet field. So there is.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. You end up with the cross axis, and you get 4 poles out each side, and that's what we see when you look at the magnetic map of the UTM on the UTM grid. We get the 4 poles. So there's one in Canada, Russia, and Australia. So that just means that we're not the north-south is actually we're laying on the side. So we're looking north-south through the center, and the magnet's actually laying on its side, right? So north-south is actually on the y-axis, so to speak. It's not on the zenith; it's on the y. Right? North-south, literally, right? And we're on the top side on one half of the magnet on the top side while it's laying on its side. Right? So that's why I'm trying to map it in this type of sense here, but to see what happens.
Try to figure out also because if when I lay this main flower of life grid over the beginning square, I have to move the circle grid of flower of life 90 degrees longitude to the left and 1.5 or 15 degrees up. I don't know, a certain latitude up, and then finally the whole grid of it lines up with the southern wave, exactly in the middle of the wave, where it has a top and the bottom, and exactly at where the wave goes over into the actual bigger land for the first circle in that sense. But you see particularly that it rests on this wave level, and you see these the mountains and the valleys and the bigger electromagnetic effects, like the really huge magnetic fields in that sense. And you have the mountain in the right bottom and in the left top, and it's like they have actually a band between the east-west poles and also the north-south, and even crossed and also through the space loop in it.
It's really profound, when light is magnetic, right? Every photon has a magnetic field in itself, right? Every atom, every photon, and then it's converted, it's slowed down because our eyes are filled with dielectric salt water, more or less, right? It hits the little sensor in the back of our eyes and converted back into electrochemical, right? Travels down the nerves in electric waves, right? And our brain converts it back into an image, right? So it's all electric. There's no getting out of it, right? So I think that's in part why the act of observing actually changes the measurement of the experiment, because you're the observer and you're electric interacting with electric. So can you change the path of an atom just by looking at it? Well, it renders to you, so there's got to be a connection, right?
Are you the master? No.
Yeah,
Master
that's the
of-
profound part of it, right? Because you know how they say in the double slit experiment, just the act of observing the experiment changes the outcome, right? That's way out there, but because you really can't measure anything because we're never out of the experiment. We're always a part of the experiment. You can't really measure anything, right? Because you can't separate yourself from reality to be an objective observer because you're in it, right?
And that's probably also the art with that meditation. People think that they have to shut up their mind. In that sense, just become aware that you're looking at your mind. You have a mind.
Become the observer observing the self. Yeah.
The observer of it. Realize who the observer.
Yeah, you to be the observer.
Is. And that's where they meditate about it. I also wrote a book about meditation, and the first chapter was about the basics of what meditation was, and then the rest of the book, all the techniques, what in the world, But if you actually realize what the first chapter says, it doesn't matter what the practice is. Just apply the principle.
It's all the same. It's all the same type of idea, right? Yeah, you got some meditators that focus on a candle, some do the Om thing, some do the walk, just a walking and quietness, and some hypnosis, all kinds of different ways. Right? It's the same basic idea that they're trying to get to the same focal point of.
What happened helps me always with meditating. Is that I'm barefooted. It helps me a lot. To become in a state of meditation, if you are barefooted, it is much more. It goes quicker. Yeah, right. And you are more grounded, basically, and you feel more. Also, your surroundings.
Because of the negative ions, artists, in the ground.
A lot of people have their shoes still on, and they have rubber in it, so it doesn't. You're not grounded because the rubber of your shoes. So
just don't do it in the middle of an electrical storm. I recommend rubber shoes in an electric storm. Otherwise, barefoot's the best way to go.
Yeah, indeed.
Need those negative ions from the ground.
Yeah.
People realise that we must be quite electric. We've got electric pulses in us. We breathe in the electric free energy. Ions in the ground, all to do with these kind of things as well. It's like we're actually living in. I'm surprised we can live here, really. Look at what we're living in.
Well, it's interesting too. Is even on the medical side of it or the physical side, there's the actual type of tissue that the brain is made out of. I think in 3 places in the body. And I think it's, so you got the brain matter, and then there's a small part of the heart that has the same tissue in it, but it's not the entire heart, but just a small part of it. And it's kind of like the pacemaker that controls how many beats the heart will do per minute. So it's like a little brain inside your heart that's separate from your big brain, right? And the other one is, I think the woman's uterus has the same type of tissue, right? And that's where life starts, right? Obviously, right? Yeah, but it's only in 3 places. Yeah. And it's kind of like three minds within the same body. It's electric, obviously, but it'll do the pulse, right? Without thought, like there's a little pulse muscle, and it's just like the pacemaker of the heart. I have to look it up to find the technical term for it.
It's like a 3-phase.
Yeah, like that's how you can, if you say you're injured and your brain dies, your heart will keep beating, right, without the mind being involved. It has its own brain. It just it'll keep beating for a certain period of time. Right? You can be at end still alive in a coma, that type of thing.
What about your lungs? Because you breathe really without thinking, don't you?
It's a bit different, I think, because you can mentally control your lungs and hold your breath or that type of thing. So it's a slightly different tissue. Close, I think, but different. Yeah. But you can't mentally stop your heart, right? You can't go, okay, let's stop my heart right now. Right. And
people
just
can
voluntarily suicide by thinking about it. I think you can slow it with enough concentration, but you can't physically just say, okay, that's it, I'm out of here, and just say, okay, I'm going to stop my heart right now, and that's it. Voluntarily suicide by thought alone, right? It has its own fail-safe. It's a fail-safe, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Indeed, you can regulate your heart to a certain degree, but never stop it.
Oh, yeah. And you can speed up your heart. You can just imagine that there's a giant bear with a whole pack of wolves and, something raining down on your head. Use your imagination. And you can scare yourself to start your heart, give yourself a boost of adrenaline if you're we've all done that where you thought you heard something behind the door or whatever, and your heart jumps, right? And you get that little rush of adrenaline. Right?
Start a panic.
Athletes train to do that, right? I used to, I used to train in karate too for a long time ago. I was in good shape and younger, right? But that was part of the process, right? Imagine your opponent is a violent bear, right? Don't see him as a man, see him as a bear that's going to kill you, right? And it's a fight or flight thing, and you'll have the strength of 10 men, right? Right? Don't see him as a
man, see him as something that is life-threatening, right? And behind you or whatever, right? Whatever it is you need to focus on, right?
Yep.
Right? And then walk through it.
Well, people, they get crazy strength, don't they? You know, when they need it, they've got it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all heard the stories of the mother that picks up a car off her child or whatever, right? How did she do that? She lifted a 4.5-ton car off her baby, right? Right.
Does that happen when you don't
strange
think
stories.
then, Chris? When you actually don't think about doing it and you just do it?
Yeah, I don't know if I could control that. I mean, right?
Well, that was the story.
It's just it's a supernatural state of mind, right? They just step out of their bodies for a second, and where that energy comes from, I have no idea. But
Well, there's 2 people on the island. They picked up a car off of someone. It fell off of it was on a sea wall, you know, and it fell off the car park down onto somebody, and 2 nippers picked it up, 2 youngish lads picked it off of mate, and he got out.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Yeah. You know, normally if you tried to lift something like that under normal conditions, you'd
break your back.
You break your back and tear your hips would give out before you even. I've been in situations like that. Being a builder, right? You got 6 guys on a heavy truss, right? And you're trying to walk it towards the house to get it up on the thing, right? And you're the guy in the middle, and the guys on the outside. All of a sudden, you hit the high ground, and you're starting to take the weight, and you can almost feel your hips start to come apart because it's like whoa, right? Because you're carrying the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I've had that a few times like that.
Isn't that strange? Yeah, you're carrying a heavy truss with 6 guys on it or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got way too much weight. Right?
Yeah, when you put it down, you feel like you're floating.
Oh yeah. You rise right up off the ground. It's like, oh, that was cool. Right?
With the festival once, we were collecting the blocks of large fences we built up around that, and at some point they were actually rolling off a hill in a corner, and that actually managed to lift the blocks out of it. Luckily, nobody was hurt. It was really my job.
Well, I think
you put your
some
mind
of
to
this
it.
must happen, but people aren't thinking. If you thought about it, because once you started thinking about your hips, it hurt more. Because some people don't like. If you don't see yourself being shot, say in the arm, you don't feel the pain the same. I'm not saying that's sure for everybody, but people say if they don't see themselves being hurt,
it's the same when you get a shot at the hospital. If you don't see it, it hurts less. That's why you often.
It's like if you don't mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah, kind of where you put your focus on.
Yeah.
You can be in the trauma of memory, but you can also experience now and here.
Right.
In how aware you actually are. Are you actually aware that you are in that moment?
Yeah, it's important too, because as we process memories, like you said, you start processing memories. You can actually relive the same memory over and over and over. And every time you think about it, you're creating the same emotional state within your mind and your body, and it's not healthy, right? If it's a bad memory or something that's not positive, then
do you know what though, Chris? What have they done? They've made our whole mind full of a set of lies, like space and all these other things.
Well, exactly.
Every set of lies.
Yeah, we're all living in a terror type of environment for the most part. I mean, it's not all bad, right? But the news is certainly saturated in a biased sense where it's all just negativity and terror and fear.
That's why I don't watch the news anymore. I only listen to it on the radio in the morning, the local news, and that's it.
Yes, I don't watch the news anymore. It's too depressing.
Also, because if you watch the news, listen to the news, it's a whole different ball game, because you make up your images yourself. If you listen to the news on the radio, then you can make your own images, and if you watch the news, you also get the visual material, and that's those two together is much stronger as you only listen to it.
Reliving the trauma.
Yeah, but most of it's not even real anyway, is it?
No.
95% of it's not real.
Yeah.
Okay. All we're living in is one of those films, like they did the one about, Arnold Schwarzenegger when he went to Mars, and they're watching all these news things, and it's all virtual reality. I mean, we're just living in the same thing.
It's kind of like three people as well. So as soon as they're seeing a camera, I'm on TV. How do I need to act? And then you don't see the actual person. You're just seeing what they think they have to let the world see who they are. Kind of fulfilling expectations, so instead of the real individual.
Well, we've been waiting 30 or 40 years now, or 30 years for Virgin Galactic to make it. No, we've been we're 12 years into SpaceX and 60 years or whatever into almost now into NASA, and nobody's gone anywhere. What's that tell you, right?
Fake.
Apparently, they went to the moon. Apparently.
In a tin can aluminum foil. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
With a Nokia, not even a smartphone, basically.
Oh, yeah.
With this little tiny thing, but they were able to put like a Jeep-sized thing in it. Take pictures on the moon as they were leaving.
Yeah, the lunar rover.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went to the moon in '67, and the watch that I wore on my arm in '86 had more technology in it than the entire space program. It's amazing.
And yet you can't.
I just so wish that we'd questioned this in the 60s. It would have been much better for all of us if the people in the 60s had questioned all this.
I suppose they did. I suppose there was a lot of people that did. Just you didn't have the internet to talk about it.
No, I think that they've got everybody where they wanted, because don't forget, not being horrible, because I love the Americans. I love everybody. But, in our world, the cowboys and Indians, the war films, the space, everything was America, and they're the heroes, and everybody's, Americans are proud of everything, and they got us exactly where they wanted us.
Well, that's the problem with the news. There were probably in the 60s people who were saying that the whole moon landing was fake, but they never got any airtime on the news. They tried to keep those people out of the news as much as possible.
Well, it was only 4 channels back then, or probably 3.
Yeah, and you'd never find all their stuff on YouTube, would you? You'd never find. Maybe you could find some old radio shows or something, but you're never going to find.
The whole media
flat earthers since forever, aren't there? Okay. No, so
the whole media of.
Well, the flat Earth has been in the news since you can go back. I think I sent I think it's called the Chronicles. I sent it to RTs. Right, you can go back to the 1600s, 1700s newspapers, and you'll see them. They're still lambasting flat earthers, saying that they're Neanderthals and crazy killers, and so was murdered by a flat earther, etc., etc. So all this propaganda against the flat Earth, it's never stopped.
It was there was even in the early 1900s. There was in 1910, believe there was a whole strike against the globe Earth, massive strike of people walking in the street with signs: the Earth is not round, it's flat.
Do you still have any of those articles, RTs, on your computer? So you could probably pull up and show people since we're live. There's the old newspaper articles.
Deep inside the rabbit hole, we put up
I can look for it.
About a billboard that 100 years ago, saying research flat Earth.
Just a Library of Congress.
It's so weird that
newspapers. Yeah.
It's so weird that we're finding out all this stuff now. Goodness we are. At least we're awakened today and we're finding out now. But it's just ridiculous. Mind you, like you said, news could take a week or 2 to travel in those days to get so it'd be so out of news, wouldn't it? Because it'd be old news.
It's very profound, though. I'm still trying to get my head around why it is that the flat Earth thing is such a sensitive topic. In today's context, I mean, we're living in the age of anything goes, right? It's legal to dress up like a Dalmatian in a costume and crawl on all fours down Main Street in London, England, with a leash, a leash on your neck. You can go out in the woods and legally marry a tree nowadays, etc. Whatever you want to do, anything goes, right? But yet, if you
can choose religion, you can choose which religion you want, and they're all different.
Yeah. But if you're a flat earther, it's one of those topics that's like, no, you can't be a flat earther. No, you can't do that, and you can't be Electric Universe either. By the way, it's actually banned in Wikipedia. You can't find with some truth in it.
You can't do
anything with the truth. You can't do that. No, you can be anything, any part of the lie you want, but you can't be the truth.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, because you're crazy.
Right. You're crazy. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's why they try to squash it. And they ridicule you for being a flat earther.
Yeah, it's ridicule.
Yeah, it's like, you're a moron. Anybody, though, that spends a day or so looking into this and actually thinking about stuff, they will become a flat earther. I tried to debunk it and become a flat earther.
Yeah,
I set out to
start with the anti-magnetic core that can hold a magnetic field, and then go into your motion and gyros and say, okay, well, I don't know. There actually is no motion. There's nothing. And then the Michelson-Morley experiment, and even read through Einstein's theory of electric bodies and dynamics and so forth, and you'll see that he actually took all the motion out of the Earth in the equations and said it doesn't move in order to prove relativity. Right, he couldn't do it because the three body in motion problem, he couldn't solve it, so he took all the motion out of it and just made E equals MC squares. That was it.
For me, the big one, it was like the bald doesn't make a ball, right?
Right.
And then the next thing was like the main like pin in it for me, done, it's flat, we're not moving, was the stars. You cannot have the stars that we're having on a spinning globe traveling through space, hurtling towards this sun. That's been then the sun's spinning around the great attractor. You know, it's just, man, that don't work.
Yeah, the sky hasn't changed in how many thousands of years?
Yeah, you've got the same stars, so that tells you we do not spin through space. And that was it for me. You know? That was the final nail in the coffin, so they say. It's like, well, it's definitely not what I've been told, right? then that was when the fun began. Where am I? Let's look at it.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's when I found all the problems then with like the AE map and everything. You know, I thought, well, that don't work either. And that's how I've come to be where I am. You just got to look into it for yourself. I've realised that there is no one really has got a model that is it.
So with the model, I guess the main confusing is that we try to actually connect the land with sky and how the sky works, and what actually is a kind of electromagnetic holographic bubble around you personally, and that you actually as a center point of a toroidal body. What is your body yourself perceive that and think then that the line you walk on has to actually exactly match that sky, but that sky is that particular rainbow bubble where you're talking about.
Well, you can move around this earth and you can know where you are by looking at the star.
Yeah, and I see it also with what Santos presents with that particular birth chart, where he explains that you look at the horizon line and where the wheel turns around, and then you have each object in their own circle. So
yeah, there's definitely something to the stars and when you're born.
Right, has also a correlation with how you turn that wheel on a particular location. And that's how everything is then correlating to the horizon, particularly how you have this up and down. I think the sixth dimension in that sense of the looping circle in the toroidal field over the third axis, up and down, as in east-west in the fourth, north-south in the fifth, and then the up and down in the sixth. And that in the seventh, what is a containing field around that. Again, not sure how that actually works, but
that's what we're here.
Already what it is, and only how that actually works out in the rest of the grid, or what that grid needs. So far, it functions within the square and the data what I have in north and south. But I'm wondering, what is then the next level in that? What does that do? Is that first circle beyond the square already containing all the bubbles of how all the planet layers are working out, and you have then the north and the south as the axis around where it turns, as we have Polaris and Sun and Star, etc. And that's all the turning wheel we see. And then we have the equator, where we have the actual straight line in where we actually see the meeting of the north and south polarity through the lens of how that works between the polarities of all this stuff. And I figure also the four pillars having a specific effect of the four winds, all that weather stuff relating with that. Because everything is built through this whole electric magnetic stuff, even the lens.
18. Oh, sorry.
Already.
Sorry about that. It's just suddenly there was artist's voice. Yes, series.
Yeah, I thought he was finished. Sorry.
Sorry, series. Have you finished, series?
Yeah, go on.
Well, I found a newspaper. You can present it in 1899. It basically tells when you were teaching at school that the Earth was a globe, you were sent to prison. Chris also showed this newspaper. He sent me the link of it, so you can read from 1899. When you taught at school that the Earth was round, you were got a fat chance you were sent to prison.
Golly, same persecution then.
Mm-hmm.
Before the age switch.
Oh. So they are stating that the globe Earth model has been around for a very long time. Basically isn't, because you can clearly see over here in 1899 most of the people were in the opinion that the Earth was flat.
It was flat, yeah.
And if you said
that's the opposite, right? Because that's a common argument of the globalist model is, well, we've known for 400 years that the Earth has been a globe, and since Copernicus, right? Well, they were still trying to put people in jail in 1899. So obviously they've been caught in a bit of a lie there, right? That's not true. It's just that the media, right, has been changed.
Yeah, they don't count on it that you actually do research. Most of the people don't, but we do because we are a live research group. And you can find out this kind of things in old newspaper. Also, that there were electric cars in the 1910 already. And there was even
I know, and they could have gone electric, and they decided to make it all petrol, and then tell us that there's a problem with the fumes in the air. We could have been electric. Imagine the cars we'd have had now.
Oh yeah.
Word.
And you could even there was even a guy in the 1960s who put a solar panel on an old electric car, and he could basically drive for free.
Yeah. Imagine what we do
Can
now.
I show you something? If 100 years ago or more, they were thinking of actually making electric cars, doesn't that just show you something?
Yeah, that we know nothing yet. Apparently, we have forgotten a lot, kind of not from history.
It's probably the 2 world wars that did that.
Yeah, and they don't they count on it that you don't research this kind of things on the internet. Now you can.
We're very much propagated, especially how traumatic.
It's the same for me. It's not the same subject, okay? It's about that pyramid, which is about 20, 30 miles from me. As I've said before, if I went out there into Thatcham, where I live, or anywhere around in here, and asked what they thought Silbury Hill is, they're going to say, oh, that's that sort of unidentified sort of mound of earth. They don't know what it is. And when you go to the computer, it's still got the old bit that it's this methylific thing, and it's old, and da-da-da. But now you can find it on the Pyramid of the World. So why isn't it actually updated as a Pyramid of the World so that everybody can see it on the internet? It's not. So they've done the same thing. It is a pyramid, and yet all over the internet, it's still an unidentified object, mound of earth. Same thing. An artist, if you want. Artist?
Yeah. I was typing in something.
I'd finished.
Okay. I was actually researching something to show the people that there was an electric car show in, I believe, 1925. So I was searching for that to actually show you a picture that it was a hot thing to have an electric car. I would wonder how many electric cars there were driving in that time period. And it wouldn't surprise me if half of the people were driving electric back then.
Yeah. So Stan, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say about Tesla running that fair, didn't he? He ran that whole...
Oh, yeah. Tesla had an electric car, and it went really fast, too. I think it was 85 kilometers an hour back in the day. Yeah.
Well, he ran that fair as well,
highway
didn't he?
speed.
From
Yeah, he did,
his
yeah.
DC power. And then the next year, he didn't, basically.
Yeah, Edison and Morgan went after him.
Yeah, they didn't want to
I
charge.
think that's another reason why they had to have wars, because then it would stop all the technology, wouldn't it? And then it'd be just looking at sort of planes and missiles, and everywhere was too poor, wasn't it? After the wars, to sort of start again. Oh, with petrol cars.
The people were
Yeah,
running
I'm kind of hoping one day people will just start to wake up to it and just start to create the reality that they want to live in. Just reject all that nonsense and stop eating the force-fed reality. Right? Don't take the pill. Take the red pill. Don't take the blue one.
Well,
Here's a good example too. I just shared up here too. This is a great example. This is The Economist from 1988, January 1988. This is the cover, written and stuff like that. Investment bank. So this is banking way back in 1988. Look at the image on the cover. You can see there's the Triple Crown, the Phoenix on the dollar, and so it's threatening to collapse as usual, right? Look at the coin that the Phoenix is wearing, right?
Yeah.
2018, right? So it's just been predicted in advance. And then you go to another one. So I'm just comparing the dates here. 2015, you've got, looks like a flat earth map and the wheels, right? There's your cog, right? The machine. And it actually looks almost like a Gleason map that's turned into the wheels with the blockchain, Bitcoin, right? And so we're hearing about that now in the news.
Yeah.
So blockchain is the new paradigm, right? The new paradigm for make the wheels of economics turn. And then you look at this one. This is 2017, The Economist, called Planet Trump, and you can see that these guys lay it all right out. Right. This was actually published before he was elected, by the way.
Tarot card.
Yeah, I think these cards are quite old. Yeah, when they were originally made, I think. I'm not sure, but you can see that it's basically laying out the agenda. Right. There's your division between basically the Orthodox and different Christian communities, different religious communities. There's the ivory tower, right, being split with the V for victory, right? The lightning bolt of Venus and all the symbology of that. This here is the writing is now on the door. That's symbolic of Martin Luther King when he walked up to I think Congress and put a proclamation and drove it into a door. That's a historical event being referenced. Trump here sitting on top of the world, right? And he's sitting on an American flag that's coiled like the rebel snake. So this is the rebel flag. Essentially, he's the rebel and doing the I can't remember the name, but anyway, this
royalty.
Well, he's got the caduceus right in one hand, so there's the caduceus, and then he also has the triple crown in the palm of his hand, right? Right, and he's sitting on top of the world. And if you look real close, I mean, you gotta look close at this stuff, right? There's a dotted line going to his heel as he kicks the border open between Canada and the United States and creates like the North American Union, which would actually encompass all the way down to Mexico. So this is now all one. So there's the North American Union trade deals, and he's isolated in shade. They've isolated out Brazil. So Brazil would be part of the BRICS nations. So it's not in the plan, right? So that's the BRIC, which is Brazil, Russia, Indonesia, China, and North Korea probably, or whatever the BRICS nations stand for. And so Sudan, I think, is another one. So there's BRICS is a set of nations that are together. There's your division between the players, right? There's your Masonic actors, right? Controlling the act behind the scenes, and the banking system. So education, then again, it's being separated and controlled outside of this would be, I guess, praying hands, I think, scriptural, right? So more religious division. Then there's folks like us standing on top of what looks like almost like the
authority
Devil's Tower, right? So we're standing up on top of the Devil's Tower trying to shine a light and saying, hey guys, look over here, right? And this is the economic waves of floods and whatnot, people revolting, saying, stop this. So this is the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, TPP, the TPIP, and the European Union, right?
Then in the right corner below, you can see a globe that is split too.
Yeah, broken.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Right. So there's the lightning bolt splitting the globe in two. So they're dividing it, right? Being split. So there's all your unrest in Europe, right? With the trade agreements and riots and whatever's going on and all that stuff. People marching against it.
Yeah.
Grabbing. This is obviously the apocalypse, right? With your Zika virus and mosquitoes, and there's your nuclear threat, and there's the red sun of China. This is the rider with the white horse of death coming in Revelation, and then the fish that's now dried up that's also one of Revelations, right?
Oh, golly.
Plague and famine, and then here's the pill, right? You need to accept the 3D reality of the magician, and everyone's a carbon copy of each other, and it's all virtual reality. And
I like that one because he's got the VR headset on.
Yeah, he's got the VR headset.
No, he's got the sun behind him as well. He's like, yeah, looking at it in
right,
VR.
So here's all the setup, right? So these are all the problems, and this is the solution that's going to be offered, right? This is predicting the
Wheel of Foertsch.
election. So this is Merkel.
Chris, with
Yep.
Stan saying A on, he's pressing a 3D box wearing a 4D.
VR.
Yeah, that's like your 3D printing, right? So everybody's a carbon copy. So it's just like cookie cutter. Everything's the same. Cookie cutter, 3D, right? 3D printing, 3D manufacturing, robotics, and all that stuff, right?
Also
And
on
obviously-
the Wheel of Fortune, that the German one is a miracle, but the Dutch one looks like Wilders. She probably knows that, the politician Wilders in Holland.
Yeah, and this fellow here, I found him in the news too. I can't remember his name, but
Wilders,
he looks just Wilders.
It
Yeah,
is-
he's got like the white hair, and he's got
Yeah. indeed.
I say.
So Dutch, Netherlands, and Germany. So that's the major elections for this year. That's kind of, I think they've already happened. Most of them have anyway. This one may not have happened yet, but I think this one did, and he lost.
In the Netherlands, we are still in the Netherlands. They still have to form a government. So
Yeah. The other thing too with this one here, I mean, you can clearly see that in the magician card. It's obviously the Statue of Liberty, right? He or she is standing as a Statue of Liberty with their finger on the button, right, and the infinity symbol, and it's also has the backlit, so that's like a Christ-like type of halo, right? And the solution is the rod of God, and the Statue of Liberty with the Roman style of dress, and very symbolic stuff. And obviously Merkel's feeling the pain, right? She's got the problem with the immigration, and she's just getting zapped and zapped and zapped, right? And the star card was kind of interesting. This is the
It's got faces all over it.
well, this is the Mars, right? So this is the illusion of everybody. All the children are going. The star children are going to Mars, right? In the star, and it also kind of represents the fallen star Wormwood, and this is the comet Wormwood, right? Mentioned in Revelation, and these are all children, right? There's actually mostly children, young people. Their faces in the stars, and if you count them, I think this one will actually make a certain shape if you count them. And I tried to do it there one day. You can see the symbol of the Star of David in there, and the white stars, I think, actually forms the Star of David,
10 and 15.
which would be Israel.
Do you know how many people would have looked at that cover and not seen all this stuff in there, all the symbols?
Five small ones.
Yeah. I mean, it's right full, right? You can see the churches are falling on the people, right? The division and stones.
Hey, the bricks and the marbles.
Yeah.
Electric effect.
Yeah.
10 and 15.
I mean, that's how the program works, right? That's the soft install, right? It's the secrets in plain sight, the whole agenda. You have been told, right? It's not like we didn't told you. We told you. See there, look, we told you.
Yeah.
We warned you. You didn't see it coming. You're too stupid to see it coming. It's your problem, right?
Yeah.
That's the attitude.
Yeah. Also, and indeed, with that one world currency, basically the dollar, the pound, and the euro are basically have the same worth nowadays. $1 is almost £1, is almost €1. It's very close. So it's very easy to make one world currency because most of the currencies already has the same worth.
And the North American, let me see. I'll look it up for you. North American.
Great.
So African Union and what is it?
Coin currency. They already had it designed. I can't remember when it was.
They're practically building this already. What is it? 15 years ago now, at least.
Yep.
At least.
Very alarming, isn't it? Because the pound has dropped so much.
Yeah, on purpose. They want to make the pound as the same worth as the dollar and as the euro.
Yeah.
The Amero coin.
Oh yeah.
Union.
Euro,
yeah. The Amero.
Yeah, it's called the Amero coin. If you look it up, let me see. I'll try and find it here.
Maybe I can find it.
Amero coin.
Bush signed it already.
Yeah, I think it's been signed. Right? Hasn't it been? Hasn't it? It was already signed, right? As an official currency potentially.
That's right. A couple of years ago, they already had that American coin. A friend of mine had it as a Facebook icon, so I can look it up really quick.
Here, I think I got it.
What Alex Jones is about also, but then the ADHD
right. So you see the
version, but they actually tell you the stuff what they're going to do.
Right. So you see, it's the same. It's the same design, right? It's exactly the same thing. Like that image I showed you from The Economist back in 1988, right? The Amero coin is exactly the same design. You see that it's the North American with Brazil has no topology. It's just flat, so it doesn't include. It's just the American Union.
Yeah. Only 6 leaves.
Right. Then it's got the lightning bolts. So these are lightning bolts. Right. Here's the lightning bolts in the right, and then the olive leaf branch or whatever in the left. You see, it's got.
It's not the bit with the fire, is it? Because everybody reckons it's fire this time, isn't it? That's going to.
And that in that little circle below a double chain chain locked into each other in a circle.
Down in here, yeah. It's really small, but that's it. It's the double D, right? It's like a double D type of idea, or a flower, or like the infinity knot loop type of idea.
Yeah, but
I mean, this is not an eagle, right? It's the phoenix, right? It's the same thing. The phoenix is that symbol.
Yeah.
This coin was already in 2009, I believe, or the time period, or even earlier.
9 gold. 1 troy was
1 troy ounce. I think you can buy it. It's $1,000 for a troy ounce to buy that coin in 2011. I think they were selling them. I think, right? The Amero. So it's a soft and slow installation.
These are amazing amounts.
This is obviously the A with the double lines. I mean, obviously that's the square and the level, the compass and the level, square and the level. Right, square and the level. That's the Masonic side of it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But your brain sees it as an A, right? In an A, right? If you zoom in on that, that's not an A. It's actually a square, like a compass scribe and the level, right?
Oh,
it's the Masonic symbol.
Yeah. With all this wealth and fullness, you really may wonder how in the hell can you get so much emptiness out of that in this world.
Yeah.
Is that the New World Order money then?
Yeah. Well, there is a big fight going on, right? Because right now the U.S. dollar is still they still have the what's it called, the base currency, right? Like all the world in economics, the world of economics, right, uses the U.S. dollar as their basis to gauge their own dollars from, right? So every dollar is compared to the U.S. dollar for value. But now the U.S. is so overextended in debt, like $38 trillion or something ridiculous.
Where? Doing nothing.
Yeah.
It shows you money's not real, doesn't it? Then.
Well, you would think with that much debt that the U.S. dollar would be worth, in a negative value, right? It's negative 10 cents versus it's not worth anything.
I mean, people don't. If you go out to some of these places where hurricanes have been before, years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, the towns look like the hurricane came yesterday. They've not been rebuilt. There's so many things not happening because there's no money, and yet they can. It just seems crazy.
In a way, I'm thinking also, if there is a land without money, and then how in the hell can there be done nothing with all the hands available?
Yeah. Well, technically, I think if you do it per capita, 358 million people in the United States, and the U.S. owes so much money that each individual, like every citizen of the entire United States, owes about $318,000 or $320,000 each in debt, right, to the rest of the economic community. Right, they're so far in the hole. Right. So I mean, you have your own mortgage, but as a taxpayer, you still owe another $318,000 that you have to repay, right, as an American citizen.
Yeah, you never will.
You never will. No,
it's designed like it, and it's like I said. If I go to the bank, me and Series were making candles, and there's only 5 candles, and he's got 5, and I want to borrow 5, but he wants 6 back. Then there's only 5 candles. There's not 6, so I can only give him 5 unless he makes another one and lends it to me to lend it back to him. I can never pay him off, and that's how the banks are working. That's why everyone's got a debt, and with that debt, you could pretty much work out the cash flow in that country. Just from the debt.
And debt and usury is actually, illegal, right? It's an illegal act. It's extortion, right? Charging interest on loans is actually illegal.
I was just sat here thinking, really, if enough people woke up, you could have your own currency from the people. You could even just trade dirt.
That's the whole thing.
You could trade, grams of dirt and say that gram of dirt is worth £10. An equivalent.
It's a banker's word which says, "Give me the right to mint, and I don't care what the law of the land is."
Well, let's face it.
Every person has.
In reality, though, right. a bloody gram of dirt is worth more than £10 note.
Absolutely,
money's worth nothing.
There's nothing that says there's nothing that says that you can't have a Monk dollar or a Series dollar or a Karen dollar or an RT's dollar. Right? Everyone has their own, and the value is based on whatever you and your buddy agree to trade it for. Like my dollar's worth. What dollar do you?
That's it, but it would only work if you had enough people doing it.
Yeah, that's why the currency works, because there are enough people working with it. And actually, companies working with it the same, that you can actually pay with Bitcoin.
Yeah, but I'm not
that's why they're trying to control the Bitcoin, right?
I'm not sure about all that. I think that's another...
That's the problem with Bitcoin. It's over, right? That's the problem. You're still giving control to them, right?
It's more like
the people need their own money. If the government was in charge...
Your own community, it's more applicable in the sense that you can just use your own cryptocurrency, because then there is the point of cryptocurrency is that you have a kind of public lecture, but nobody knows who's who. And because the lecture is right, and it's actually through how the blockchain works.
Well, Iceland had the right idea. They locked up all the bankers, didn't they? They did. They arrested all the bankers and bloody done them, and they've taken the money back. The people now, the government, have control of the bank.
Yeah.
There's an interesting little secret tidbit too. It's actually in the Bible. You guys are probably familiar with the Lord's Prayer, right? The Our Father prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. All probably memorized it at some point in your lives as part of whether you're a churchgoer now or before when you were a kid or whatever. Most people have it basically memorized, right? At some point. And if you spout it without looking, if you recite it from memory, you'll probably say, like most people would, is the give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Right? Would that be, everybody agree? That's how it goes? Right? Yeah. Well, you want to know how it's actually written? Right? In the Bible, it actually says, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Right?
Yeah.
Right? See, now the Bible being law, right? It's to put your fellow brothers and sisters into debt is actually against the biblical scripture law. So what they did is they teach everyone in church to say, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive our trespassers, right? As we forgive those who trespass against us. So they completely change it, right? Because someday, right, you may have to revert back to using IOUs and money and forgiving our debts, right? But right now they want a money system. So they've changed the scripture, right, in churches to allow them to use money. Period.
That's the bankers.
Right?
actually that there is a kind of a reset around the 50 years. I've heard about already. Kind of.
So that's the
reset.
corruption, like within the system itself. Right?
Yeah, indeed.
Don't even know that they learned it wrong their entire lives, right? They were taught wrong right from day one.
Why are we taught something different then in the Bible then, if that one's there then? Where's that one from then, Chris?
So that you can pay your taxes to the church and your donations to the church in a money system. And the temples of the church are based on monetary growth and profit, and it has nothing to do with scripture at all, for the most part.
Yeah, because the churches were the employers, weren't they? Everybody worked for the churches.
Yeah, the temples and the churches.
That's why we're all Mr. and Mrs. and Miss. And it's a corporate name. You got two names. You got your birth name, which is you, the sole person, and then you've got you, the dead corpse, the entity, which is where you pay the tax. So if someone rings up for you from the tax office and says, "I'd like to speak to Mr. Stan Smith," you just say he's in the attic and he's deaf, dumb, and blind. I'll go and get him, because that is your birth certificate.
Yeah.
Anything addressed to
they teach it wrong. Like they teach it wrong on purpose, right, to justify their own existence and make it okay for them to charge you money through your donations and stuff.
Well, yeah, really, we can travel throughout the land freely. We don't need passports and everything, but we just agree to it through our silence.
Right. The earth is your inheritance. You know, the earth, just by being born here, the earth is your inheritance, and every human here has a right to a portion of that inheritance for as long as they live for free.
Well, animals don't work.
Right.
They don't owe no one. They haven't got a
Animals don't pay for food. They don't pay for taxes on every bite of food that they eat or grow or whatever. They don't go to war against each other, right? And it's free, right? They don't pay for the air they breathe, the water they drink, and to get rid of their own waste, right? They don't pay for that.
They coexist naturally, like we should be.
That's exactly it.
We shouldn't be paying taxes.
We used to many moons ago, but we just don't anymore. And everything's just about money. Money.
That is the thing. You've always got to ask yourself, do you really need that?
Yeah, currency.
You don't need it at all. If everything is free, you can't steal it, right? How can you steal something that's free, right? But that's what they're doing. Essentially, they're stealing it from you by making it illegal for you to own it, or illegal for you to have access to it freely, right? They force you into the illusion of ownership as if you actually can own anything when in fact you can't, right?
This so falls into what Sue says. They're trying to hide you up. You is a person that is free to be here and free to have your part of where you live.
Yeah, in the sense that when Flat Earth goes public, it's also about to hide actually the slavery of you.
Right.
They don't want you to realize that you're a slave.
Yeah, they wouldn't know Egyptian slaves. We're the slaves going to your 9 to 5.
Well, the wardens are inside. In that essence, the wardens are in the prison too. So really, they're powerless because they can't get off this so-called, as they say in globe terms, right? They can't get off the planet. They can't go to space, right? Nobody's leaving the plane. Right, so they're powerless, right? Because they're just as much inherent a part of it as we are, right? Anybody else?
If we don't work,
they want you to believe.
Make their own bread.
Right? They want you to believe that you can go to space. They want you to believe in all these other things, and that puts them in the power. We control access to space. We control access to science. We control access to education. We control this. We control that. And in fact, they don't control nothing, right? Because you have the right to choose, right? And once you realize that they're lying to you anyway, they can't actually give you those things, so they're full of it. It's free anyway, right? You were born with it, right? You come into this world naked and toothless, and you leave it that way, right? Just like they do.
You don't take anything with you.
Right.
People think they do, but you don't.
And most people who've woken up are living under different vibrations of life. You know, what life means, what we're eating, how we treat people, what we think about people. And that, for me, it's brought peace. I'm sure each one of the panel here to be a flat earther has brought more peace to you. And they don't want that. They don't want us in peace. They don't want us as a peaceful people. They want us thinking that we're always killing each other. And it's just not true. They've made us hate people. It wasn't their fault.
Yeah, you can't earn money.
The Middle Eastern people. None of it's their fault.
Funny. Life is
the people aren't the problem. It is the people higher on top that are the problem.
Everybody with a heart.
They say they have the authority, and we are the ones who actually the writers who believe the actual authors. It doesn't matter how hard we give it to them, we can't lose it anyway. That's their power.
Terrible, though, isn't it? to want to treat us like this, to completely lie to us about everything, about our history, about what they're doing, about the fact there's no space. I mean, it's just disastrous. It's criminal.
It's kind of illegal as long as you actually fly in the flag. That's their motto.
That's it. That's another language as well, isn't it? Legalese. They've got their own language of law.
Yeah.
They're all ships. They're all on sea.
Yeah, that's why you go into the dock.
Yeah, that's what. And you're not supposed to understand it.
You're lost at sea. You are entitled to no land in their legalese.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's what your birth certificate is. You're registered as a ship lost at sea, basically.
Yeah.
Dear me.
For anyone that wants to look into that, John Harris, he's dead now, so he knew what he was talking about. But I'd go and look at it. It's all on YouTube. I spent hours watching John Harris. He committed suicide, apparently. But his suicide note said he was a plumber, and yet he was a master carpenter.
Well,
So,
we know all these are lies, aren't they?
a little bit
Cover-up.
suspicious. It's because he was going around saying exactly how it is, you know.
Yeah.
He was waking people.
I like those guys. I mean, no, they're willing to stand up for it and say it exactly how it is, just like you said, Stan, right? Stand up and tell it.
There's no grey. It's black and white. That's how it is. It's the truth.
Yeah, the building of temples and churches and all this other stuff that they do and everything else, and that's how they justify the money, and it's all complete nonsense. Right? It's actually according to scripture, even it's basically a sin to build a church and worship at a temple because it's actually idolatry. Right?
You should be on your own.
It's not necessary. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I was told. You should be doing it on your own, keeping it to yourself.
Yeah.
It actually says that too. I was looking that up too because I like researching it and backing up what you're saying with the facts. Right. This is actually from Jeremiah. Right. It says, "Trust ye not in lying words, saying the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord are these." Right. It's a lie. Right there. The temple of the Lord is everywhere. It's nature itself. It's everything. Right? You are it. Right. You are the temple. Right. As part of the.
Shut your eyes.
Part of. All right.
Yeah. Just real quick. A friend of mine on YouTube has a great video, and it's called "The Truth About the United States Law and You," the extended version. It's from Barnon 11970, and he explains in this video how the legal system works in America. It's a very educated video for people who want to understand about law. Just put it out there so you know.
I see John Hutchins is even having a bit of trouble, or his wife is, with the courts at the minute.
Him, aren't they? Because he knows too much.
He's a clever bloke, definitely. He sees it as
Tesla.
Yeah,
He's worked
sees
something out.
It's electric universe, isn't it?
And he's able to sort of play with, and use. So he's already worked it all out, and they don't have to come out with the stuff.
I do wonder if he is a flat earther, because he did follow Tesla, and he talks about realms and stuff. But he has said planet a couple of times. But I don't know if he's scripted, because he was doing it for TV back in the day on his old stuff. I've been watching.
Planet is not really the problem. Plane as a base word with the T together with it. It's not saying that the T makes it all.
Yeah, I mean, planets can be defined as planets, like just smaller planes, right? So who's to say that they're not disc-like planes?
Actual plane.
Right. Yeah, planes. Plane upon plane upon plane. Each plane is just a planet, right? And there's a smaller version of the plane, the greater plane. So
maybe that's why it's called a planet.
Yeah, exactly. The root word is plane.
So as a flat earther, you can say planet.
Yeah.
I was watching something the other day about English language and how there's words missing, and I'm getting into that stuff lately. How you have to imagine more than speak it.
Yeah, we were with other people, like Dave Murphy, Santos, all these other people. Letters meant something else in the olden days, and each letter was a story. So basically, like son was, if you actually looked at the letters of the sun, what a son meant, your son, daughter, then of course it's a story, and of course all that's been taken out down to one word now, 1 3-letter word. So basically we've lost language. We're educated, but we've lost language.
Definitely. We've lost everything. Basically we're starting again, aren't we?
Yeah, we're coming from the living dead.
Zombies.
Yeah, it would be wise to start trading in seed, heirloom seed, right? Have each seed worth a nickel or equivalent, right? And trade in heirloom seed, and that's how you pay with seeds.
Yeah, not Monsanto, so I'm not
No,
into none of
all organic heirloom seeds, and that becomes your currency, right? Each, an organic pumpkin seed's worth, 50 cents equivalent or whatever, right? Because you can grow a pumpkin.
Yeah, everything that was really important has been made useless or pathetic or whatever.
That is just the thing. Just because that money at the minute is worth your time and you can buy something, you could make seeds or whatever, like you're saying, Chris. Anything could be worth.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like say a gram of dirt, you could trade grams of dirt just because it's dirt. If you put a value to it, all we're trading is paper, but it's got a value to it. It's no different.
Yeah, now it's just bits on a computer screen. It's not even paper anymore. It's just infinite nothing. Yeah.
There's nothing to back it, not even dirt. Dirt's worth more than your money, really, on the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, because it's real.
Yeah.
If you think that is real, then why is cryptocurrency a problem?
Well, back in the day, they even weighed gold and silver with seeds. It's called in Dutch the Johannes Braunboom pit, and I've searched it on internet. And they weighed the gold and silver in seeds way back. I can find again.
Yeah, I sort of think as well, it's pointless having money in the bank, really.
Well, eventually the seeds are your foods. You grow your foods from that, and you can create more seeds from that. That's the actual wealth.
If you can feed yourself, you're rich.
Exactly.
Yeah, the problem I have with the cryptocurrency is I was watching a fellow. He lays it out pretty good. I'll try and find his name. Ulrich, I think his last name is. But he lays it out pretty good. Cryptocurrency essentially is digital DNA, because with each Bitcoin or cryptocurrent bit unit comes its entire history. So once it's created, it has a history that remains constant. So if it passes through your hands, right, it contains all of the data that is tied to you, even though you're supposedly anonymous, right? It still has that history, and it's verified every 15 minutes. So once it's created, that history stays with that for as long as it exists, right? Everywhere it goes, it's tracked, right? So it's like a giant DNA tracking system, essentially. It becomes almost like DNA.
Yeah, it's one ledger of all the transactions.
Right, one ledger, all the transactions. And so basically everything that everybody spends, not only you, but everything that everybody spends forever is completely tracked. And then that becomes value unto itself. It's a perfect means to study the spending habits, the location, the time, everything about everyone can be studied right down to the minute percentage of how many people spent how many dollars exactly on a particular product. So then that becomes valuable to the advertisers to target that market. Who were they? When did they spend it? How old were they? Was it a mother with 2 kids and her husband works at a car factory, etc., and she tends to buy wrenches or whatever, right?
Yeah,
they know everything about that coin.
That's why I go to the bank once a week, put my card in, cash, and then I spend cash a week. It's your last freedom, really.
Yeah.
And
they say right. Well, they say Bitcoin is anonymous. Well, it's not. It's the complete reverse of that. The entire system becomes completely transparent. Right. That's the complete opposite of anonymity. Right. Right.
Yeah.
They would know everything about everyone every 15 minutes, updated every 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, my accountant, he whinges at me because I always just spend cash, and it's like, but I can't trace it. I can't show what you're spending it on. And I'm like, exactly. That's why I do that. I don't want you knowing what I buy. You know what I mean? Why is it your business? I've earned that money. I've paid in the tax.
Yeah.
What I do with it,
since they have access to the program, like here's just a quick example off the top of my head. If they have access to the program and they can read the entire Bitcoin ledger. So let's say that there's a certain problem in some unknown country, hypothetical somewhere, and they see a sudden rise in the purchase of ammunition and knives or something. Right? That's why ammunition and gun sales goes up in a certain little area. Well, then the NRA and the CIA and everybody else is tracking those expenditures, knows exactly what the target is. Right? We've seen 1,000 people go out and they all bought M16s yesterday. Well, there's an uprise of a military group. Right?
I found the Wikipedia page of that seed that I was talking about. You can see it now. You can research that yourself because it basically is related to carat of a unit mass of the gemstone and the purity of gold takes its name indirectly from the Arabic word of the carat seed, as you can see in this picture. So there's also weight, precious stones and gold and silver with these seeds because the seeds had a constant weight, and because they were small, you could use a lot of them to measure exactly the weight of the gold and silver and diamond. Just some extra information for the people who want to research that, some history.
Thank you, Artis.
You can make bread from it. St. John's bread, locust bean.
Yeah. Yeah, you can also make oil from it, all kinds of things. You can make syrup drinks from it, and you can also use it in chocolate. So it's you can use it for a lot of things.
What food is not GMO'd yet? What seed is GMO'd yet? Mm-hmm. So that you don't have a particular problem of contamination.
Probably the only ones that aren't GMO'd are the only ones that are in that big vault in northern Norway or whatever it is.
There's a big underground vault with it.
The seed vault in Iceland. Wherever it is it Norway or Norwegian?
Yeah, especially with the particular property that it is never been GMO'd in a sense that you don't even have a GMO version, that it can't contaminate.
Yeah, you'd have to go to wild seeds and stuff and start going out and developing your own again.
Well, see, they even went after farmers because the farmers didn't want to go GMOs. They kept their natural seed. But then down the road, there was a GMO farm, and then it contaminated the farmers' fields. So then the farmers planted the seeds the next year, and where it was contaminated with GMO, they classed it as their seed and then sued them for planting their seed.
Yeah, and you can't store seed over a year now. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it's bad news.
It's such a shame because when you heard them they were going to do that, you were thinking, well, if there was a famine or if there was problems, and they've done, but ultimately it was just them creating what they wanted to create. It was nothing to do with us or helping us, or it was all just the next stage of their game.
They're just locking it all away to keep it safe because they know that what they're doing is completely wrong, you know.
They do. It would be so nice if everybody woke up then, because they just wouldn't be able to get away with it anymore.
I'm going to go grab a bite to eat here, folks. So I just thought I'd stop in and hang out for a bit. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, I would say we've been on for 3.5 hours now. Do you think it's a good time to stop and we all go together and we can say goodbye together?
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
What do you reckon? All right, well, I'm going to come back then and give a hug. Patricia's been very quiet today. Give a hug to go. You've had a hug, Chris.
Yeah, big hug.
Why hasn't my camera come back?
Yeah, it's here.
Second.
See that? Mine's lagging. Oh, there it is.
Patricia maybe fell asleep.
Yeah, maybe she did. Oh, dear. Well, she'll watch it again anyway. Well, It's been a really great hangout. We've talked about masses of stuff today, masses of different things. Artists, thank you, Chris. Patricia, thank you, Stan. And we're back tomorrow. I'm not looking at what it is tomorrow. I have to get my little book out. But anyway, to everybody, and we're going to have a group hug. We're back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Earth hug for everybody, for the panel, for everybody watching, and everybody that comes across this video later on. Again, we're back tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye.